It's not something that you experience after 5 years of practice or after your depth. You must be able to feel that, experience it here and now. As I was saying, measuring EEG, A, B, C, D, different groups, and one group meditating with pranahuti. Check all of them with EEG probes. Machines cannot lie.
Hopefully, let's talk about artificial intelligence. Is that going to change everything? I mean, is that a new sentient being that has come up that will challenge us in terms of, we've seen what ChatGPT has done, Bard has come in. Is that going to change all of us? Do we have to touch another higher level?
But that is not consciousness, that is intelligence. You see, we have to understand the difference between intelligence and consciousness. We have consciousness of a very high order. Machines don't have consciousness. They have a trained intelligence. That's the only difference.
And so what does consciousness bestow you?
Well, according to, many scientists are playing games and fighting and having a big debate on this consciousness. But simply put, as per our shastras, I'll come to that. To me, simply defined, it is a degree of awareness. By that,
Which you are saying AI will never be able to get, or can we build machines to that degree of awareness?
it will have some level of perception. It will calculate based on the data we feed. Right? Consciousness also means degree of unawareness.
Unawareness.
Yes. Right? You are aware of certain things. I cannot say you are in coma.
Right.
Right? But you don't have full awareness of what they are perceiving. They are perceiving something, you are perceiving something else. And that degree of awareness depends upon the level of consciousness that I am having. The great Swami Vivekananda, he used to say, when people used to ask him questions during his lifetime, what is the purpose of life? He would say, the purpose of life is simply make this available consciousness that we are playing around with, allow it to soar higher into sky of superconsciousness and let it plunge into a deep oceans of subconscious. So he's talking of broadband consciousness. He said you got to expand your level of consciousness, and that is the only purpose of.
So you are saying AI is indulgence. It will not in any way change the way we look at ourselves. I mean, here is this phenomenal amount of intelligence vested on you. You don't have to use your brains that much. You can use your brains for other things.
It will make life very interesting. The way your iPad, the phones, and other things, they have made our life more luxurious, so that we can do many other extraordinary things in life. We can become more creative. AI will also, I think, will facilitate such an existence on this planet. It will be extraordinary, but it can never ever substitute our consciousness. Never ever.
So we will coexist in peace or in conflict?
In peace. It depends how our programmers, they program this.
Right. Just today, we had a lot of world leaders coming out saying that AI could be harmful, that it could destroy the society that we have.
Knowing the nature of human being, they will try to be destructive. You see, many people say, why don't you awaken Kundalini? Then, in the words of Guruji, I would say, Ravana's Kundalini was awakened, and so was Lord Rama's. Which Kundalini would you awaken? So, what will you do with it?
Right. We have got 25 seconds. I think my colleague Bandeep Singh wanted a quick question from you. He has been wanting to answer you, but I said, let's do it on this.
Guruji, when you listen to or hear about the stories of transformation of all the spiritual gurus, you get to know that it was one particular moment when something divine happened and they changed their trajectory of their lives from the normal life to a spiritual path. But when these gurus, all of the gurus, when they become, gurus per se, they are like gym instructors. They have things like, you do this particular kriya, you will go there. You do this particular sadhana, you will go there. I want to ask this thing. Is there when you are in the presence of a living master, someone like you, can there be a process where you give us a direct glimpse of our inner selves, of our reality, without having to go through the path of a very long sadhana?
He wants instant nirvana. That's what he's asking.
What I'm trying to say, that just like when a car battery dies down, you jump start it with another battery. And you as a spiritual guru are a living master. So is there a way whereas you can jumpstart our batteries into the spiritual path?
First of all, I'm not a guru. Okay. Having said that, I would explain to you. You are asking, I would like to read Ramayana, but I don't want to learn the alphabets. We have to learn the alphabets first. A, B, C, D of spirituality before we can accept that. I share with you my own personal examples from my own personal life. I used to believe that the master of caliber can do anything. Right? And it's a fact also. Like when Vivekananda challenged his guru, that show me, I'm looking for God, make me experience that. So Ramakrishna kept on avoiding him for many meetings, but finally he got fed up and he said, lie down. And he made him lie down in the temple, remove your shirt. And then with his left leg touching his heart, transmitted something. That gave him samadhi. And he couldn't come out of it for a very long time. And when he came out of that samadhi, he says, I want it back. Ramakrishna says, no, I cannot give you back. You have to finish this work that has been given to you. When you have finished, this same spiritual condition will come back to you. Another example from my life, I would say, I was impatient. I want it now. I want it now. That feeling was there, and I used to cry like a child. In the middle of the night, this transmission we talk of, pranahuti, started flowing in me. And I was almost passing beyond the state of samadhi and just going out, almost dying. And suddenly something brought me back. You are not ready for departure. Right? The higher level of consciousness, for that your equipment has to be like software, has to match with the hardware. The consciousness must match with the entire body spectrum. The body's vibrations must match with the spiritual vibrations. Spiritual vibrations can be fixed by the master of caliber, but our bodily vibrations, we have to work on them. Right food, right drinks, right thoughts, right feelings, they prepare our physical.
You have your answer, Bandi. It's not easy, but you'll have to do all those things. Unfortunately, we can't wait till eternity. We have time on our hands, and I can see we've gone 0, 0, 0, 0. So, Daji,
thank you, sir.
We are out of time, but we are not going to be out of each other. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give Daji a very warm welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. It was an insightful session, an early start that we all looked for. To hand over a token of appreciation, I'd invite Mr. Ashok Verghese, Pro-Chancellor, Hindustan Group of Institutions. Thank you so much, sir. All right, the next session is Spotlight Make in India, the role of southern states, and the session is sponsored by Kerala Tourism, and I'd like to invite the session moderator, Mr. Raj Chengappa, Group Editorial Director, Publishing India Today Group, and Mr. Kaushik Deka, Executive Editor, India Today, onto the stage to introduce our speaker.
Good morning again, everyone. And I'm sure everyone knows Amitabh Kant. Let's give him a very warm round of applause. He's come back home to Kerala. As we know now, he's the Sherpa for the G20 summit, the all-important summit happening in September. He was former CEO of Ayog, outstanding bureaucrat, headed the ministries of tourism, industry, gave Kerala its famous slogan, God's own country, and built up incredible India. So another round of applause for Amitabh Kant for coming right back home. Now, Amitabh, one of the things that we've been looking at in this conclave is the importance of South in terms of industry and its ability, given the fact that you're now dealing with 20 major nations. What is the opportunity, apart from India, South India has to leverage what it has and plug into this global value chain that we've been talking about?
So Raj, first of all, it's very important to understand that South India contributes to about almost 30% of your GDP. Secondly, its per capita income is much higher than many other states. But more important than that is that states here have excelled in several areas. Tamil Nadu, for instance, has excelled in manufacturing. It is the most outstanding skilled labor available. In terms of a range of cutting edge sectors. You have Telangana, which has excelled in pharmaceutical sectors. Many people do not realize it, but almost 35 to 40% of India's pharmaceutical products come from there. Kerala itself has excelled in travel and tourism in a very big way. And it's created a unique brand for itself. And Karnataka has been the services center for India for almost two and a half decades now. It has driven India's service economy. And Andhra has earlier done a lot of work in manufacturing and also pharmaceutical, but will now, to my mind, be a great area for renewable energy and for green hydrogen and pump storage, etc. So these are states which have charted their own path. And it's also important to understand that Tamil Nadu and Karnataka will be $1 trillion economies soon by In another 2 years, they'll be both $1 trillion economies. So India's ambition to be a $5 trillion economy and then a $10 trillion economy, a lot of that will have to be driven by the southern states. They will have to be the key drivers in the forefront to really drive India's growth in the coming years. And the last point I want to make is that these states have truly demonstrated outstanding work in human development indices. So the quality of life, the social indicators in health, education, nutrition have all been very, very high. I mean, compared to the rest of India, they've been way, way ahead. These are slow-moving indicators. They take a lot of time, but that really shows that work done over several years, despite changes in government, the consistency of policy on social development has really yielded results in these states.
I just want a quick follow-up question. When you look at the fact of exports, for instance, since we're talking about global value chains, we had a huge bump last year. We have now plateaued on merchandise goods. It is services sectors that is booming. And this particular part of India, particularly Karnataka, has this huge IT infrastructure that has actually driven a lot of the services export. What is the next level you think this particular industry has to take, given the fact that we have having artificial intelligence, all kinds of things? How can we leverage that to be really on top of the world in terms of these developments?
So I think the South India must be the key driver of new skill creation. There's a very severe shortage of skills in India. It's impossible to get coders. It's impossible to get great product developers in India. They're very highly paid. It's impossible to get them. It's impossible to get AI and ML engineers today in India. There's a startup called Scalar, which does that 9 months course it does. So somebody who's passed out of an IIT and just shows the kind of curriculum we need to restructure. He does a course where a person from triple IIT or IIT gets an entry fee of about 3 lakhs. Once you've done that Scalar course, your salary jumps up to about 30 lakhs. So that really shows that there is a need to completely restructure and redesign your curriculum of triple IITs and IITs for the world of today. 30% of the skilled manpower in 2047 will be all Indians. And these are emerging areas of growth, not merely product developers, not merely AI engineers, not merely coders, but you need a new set of engineers for electric mobility, for green hydrogen, for advanced chemistry, cell battery. These are the emerging areas of growth which are going to take India to the next level of growth. Without these areas, India will never be able to become a $10 trillion economy. I mean, if you look at China, which grew at 10% plus from 1990 to 2010, its emergence is largely because it became a great manufacturer of mobiles. It became a great manufacturer of components. It became a great manufacturer of electric two-wheelers. It became a great manufacturer of electric vehicles and of batteries. So these are areas which have given a huge jump to its GDP, and these are emerging areas. The value you get from them is almost 100x of the value of other traditional sectors. So these are areas. Now, the important thing about South India is that these are coastal states. And coastal states make a big difference because you are able to then import components. You're able to, in global value chain, the challenge is that you should be able to get goods from about 100 countries at the lowest cost, put them all together, design and send them out for exports and penetrate global markets. Because they are coastal states and they have good ports, these states have a huge advantage over other states in terms of becoming champions of global value chain in these areas. And I think that is really, they need to leapfrog into every state aiming to become the next Singapore of the world.
Wow.
They should not think of trying to compete with Maharashtra or Gujarat. Each state of South India must say that I'm going to beat Singapore. And that should be the ambition and that should be the hunger in them.
Kaushik, you had a question? Right.
Yeah, you talked about the South driving the growth, and already 30% of the GDP the South accounts for. But at the same time, states from South, they keep complaining about that they get penalized in terms of revenue sharing or taxation in a way that they are actually suffering because of their growth. How can the central government balance that out between South and lesser progressing North?
What he's saying is the price of success. South does so well, contributes enormous amount to the GDP, but when it comes to taxes and shares of taxes, we are not there.
Yeah,
We don't get equal
so
amount.
two ways. One is that we must first understand that we are a large country, so it's not possible that every state is going to grow at the same rate. Some states are going to be leaders. You need 10 Indian states to grow at 10% plus. Secondly, what the new budget has done is that states which focus on disinvestment, which focus on asset monetization, etc., has put out a huge allocation to be given to these states to benefit from. So it's actually given out benefits to states which are moving towards progressive policies. So if you look at the budget of last 3 years, what it does is it incentivizes good policies. And that is the right measure to take. If we, instead of penalizing, some penalization will take place because you need money to finance other states as well. Otherwise, Bihar, etc., will never be able to grow and prosper. That's important. But you are also providing an incentive for states which are moving to progressive policies in a big way.
No, I want to come back a little bit about what you said about the services sector. Let's take a look at IT. So far, we have been great BPO centers. We have also software. But the next level, the knowledge level, the AI level, the IoT of things, where can we start getting to cutting edge? You don't hear of a Microsoft, you don't hear of a Google, you don't hear of this. How can India become the leaders in that when we talk?
So Raj, to my mind, three basic things which we need to do is, first is that this is not going to come from established companies. Let me tell you this. This is going to come from a lot of disruption in the startup world. And therefore, my view on this is that each state of Southern India must create a unique startup culture. I mean, Google, Microsoft, all these were startups once upon a time which have got huge value. Secondly, each state needs to start its own fund of funds so that it can then support a lot of venture funds so that you can spawn a lot of startups. Thirdly, each state needs to create its own fund of funds for deep tech, because deep tech is something which you are going to get into new areas of space, you're going to get into drones, you're going to get into robotics, you're going to get into health, you're going to get into startups for education and agriculture, all cutting edge. And therefore each state needs to think much beyond what central government is thinking. I mean, the state governments must think 15 years ahead of what the central government is thinking. That's the way India will grow. And to my mind, that level of disruption must come from the states, not the other way around. And secondly, as I said, completely radically rethink not about your traditional sector, because still the thinking is that we'll do some agriculture, we'll do some textile, we'll do some food processing. No, that will never give you the value. Look at what Malaysia did. Actually, Malaysia's whole growth story is that they had a coastal city like Penang, and they were able to attract Intel to put up the first chip plant there. And because Intel came into Penang, that the whole of value addition into manufacturing in Penang took place, and Malaysia grew as a cutting edge manufacturing destination because of Penang only. So each one of the coastal cities here need to actually become a manufacturing destination for cutting edge manufacturing, because they have the ability to import, do value addition and re-export to the world and become a very major integral part of the global value chain. I mean, why does Shenzhen or Wuxi or Shanghai is able to do this? Because it has low turnaround time. Its ports are efficiently managed. And therefore, that is the future for these states. They're still being status quo, though they've done well compared to other states in India. But I think they need to think 10x of what they are doing. The progressive mindset should be that I'm going to beat the city of Shenzhen. I'm going to beat Korea, which has set up this, which has been able to do this. Each one of them must plan. I'm going to beat Singapore. And each state in South India is capable of doing that, because they have a huge advantage in terms of human development index. No other part of the country has that which South India has. I mean, it has invested in social indices over the years, and they must benefit from that.
Kaushik?
But what's stopping the states from doing so? Means you are talking about, you are actually identifying the vision, but we have been talking about these things for quite some time. What's stopping the states? It's lack of policy, lack of political will, or lack of vision, or bureaucratic lethargy.
So first is that all states still have a socialist mindset. They all grown up in an era of control where government played a key role. Government must retreat in all these areas. They must scrap all rules, regulation, procedures built over the years, and particularly so Kerala. It must allow private sector to grow. It must believe in wealth creation, and government must do only consistent policy making over a long period of time, and government must do only health, education, and nutrition. That's my belief. And that's the new political ideology which must come in. The wealth creation must happen all from private sector.
Let's take tourism. This is something very close to your heart. We have not exploited the kind of potential that we have, whether in the South and the... What does India need to do? What does South India need to do? It's so rich in whatever you've talked about. What does it need to do to go to the next level of tourism? What would you do if you were tourism minister in these states? What would be the key things?
Kerala, we'll talk about the state of Kerala and what we can learn from it. But tourism works on a very simple principle. It works on the principle that how do you differentiate your product from rest of the world? That means how can you create a unique experience which you can't get anywhere else in the world? Now, Kerala had only one product, which was kovalam. This was a very low-value destination. We used to get cobblers and garbage collectors from Manchester to come and holiday here. And we used to get charter full of flights. We stopped all that. And we created new products. The backwaters of Kerala, the houseboats of Kerala, not a carpenter was available. They'd all gone away to Gulf. We got them back to do these houseboats. We brought back Ayurveda. We brought back the traditional Kerala cuisine. Much of what you eat now, appams and stew and fish molly was unheard of. We brought back the Kerala martial art, Kalripettam. We brought back the traditional Kerala architecture. All this was being sold as firewood. The Nalkittam houses, we brought back the traditional Kerala art forms, the Mohiniyattam, the Kathakali, all that. We went back to the roots of Kerala and we created a great product, and we said, this is God's own country. And what we did was to unleash. This is a state where manufacturing had totally failed because of trade unionism. How did it succeed? Because we said, and unlike Haryana, which was a product of state creating resorts, we said here the private sector will create products. And the private sector created some of the finest, the most unique boutique resorts. The state only did last mile in terms of roads, in terms of jetties, and the state only did destination marketing in partnership with the private sector. So what it shows is that every state, there can't be a better state in terms of a tourism product than Karnataka, than Tamil Nadu. All these are remarkable states. Actually, to my mind, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu have a better product diversity than even Kerala.
Kerala may not like that, but you're saying
Yeah, I'm being honest. Having worked in Kerala, I can be honest that these have better tourism product. There's no reason why Karnataka should not emerge as the world's #1 tourism destination. There's no reason at all. So each state has a unique ability to create a fascinating experience, which comprises of, look at Karnataka. Hampi, to my mind, is the most magnificent heritage destination. It truly represents India's great civilization. It has wildlife, it has backwaters, it has beaches, it has culture. It has just about everything.
But at the end of the day, you still have to have a Government of India policy that frees up airlines, frees up hotels, building facilitates all those things. Why haven't we done that? Why can't we be a Dubai, a Singapore in terms of air travel? Because unless you have connectivity of the kind that you have in other places, Qatar, small country, has a huge thing, and we have all the resources, but we don't do it. We don't facilitate our hoteliers. All the states put terrible laws. I'm sure that happens in the South as well. What is going wrong? And if you had the whip on your hand, what would you do?
So let's not I mean, these are large states. Let's not blame center for everything. Look at Kerala. The center refused to finance the airports in Kerala. I was a district collector in Calicut. There was a colleague of mine in Cochin. Cochin created a world-class airport, which is India's greenest airport today. All state funding, private sector funding. We expanded the Calicut airport, Kerala, and then Kerala created the Kannur airport. In a small strip of land, we have 4 airports. Let the states not keep falling back on center and saying you're to be blamed. Today you have very good air connectivity. You have a Bangalore airport, you have Trivandrum, Cochin, or every state has an airport. And I think states should generate wealth, get the private sector to participate. These are unique models of private-public partnership. If we could do Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, all in private-public partnership, why should the states not create their own airports?
You're being kind to the center. You're not even saying anything what the center should do. You've whacked the states.
No.
Is this because
No,
you're Sherpa?
No. Because I'm a believer that quite often we get into this business about states blaming center and center blaming states. We should get into this business of states being wealth creators on their own, structuring and driving
No,
growth.
I'm saying, what does the center need to do? Fine, the states are to blame. What does the center have to do, you think?
Center, I think, should really do consistent policy making with the clear perspective that government must retreat from a large range of areas, and that's been the government's philosophy. The center has ushered in a lot of reforms in terms of GST, IBC, low corporate taxes. That's the government's policy. The central government is just the policy framework. Many of these areas like education, health, nutrition, infrastructure, the government has created 55,000 kilometers of road, the central government through the NHAI scheme. What more do you need? Rest is also state's job. Don't keep pushing that I'm going to blame center and state. Let's not get into that business. Let's say that every state, as I said, must have a clear perspective. I'm going to drive growth at 10% plus for the next 3 decades. And what is my core competency? If my core competency is going to be tourism, I'm going to be the world's best in tourism. If my competency is going to be services, I'm going to be the world's number one. And there's no reason why Karnataka should not be the world's number one, why Microsoft and Google should not emerge from Karnataka. What's the reason? The only way out is that you need to create the next generation of skills. You need to restructure your IITs and triple IITs. You need to make Karnataka the finest destination for that. And Tamil Nadu, why should it not be the Detroit of the world?
You know, if you stood for political office, I'm sure most people here would vote for you, the way you speak. But Kaushik, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, you talked about policy making by the central government. Now, going back to your G20 role, India is focusing a lot on digital infrastructure, and we have done very well in terms of digital infrastructure, but we still do not have a data privacy bill. How do we balance that? Because once we have such UPI from Aadhaar, everything on digital infrastructure, we have done really well in the world, but we cannot protect the citizens' right to privacy.
So the data privacy bill is in its final lap. As you are aware, the earlier bill was scrapped and a new bill, which is cutting edge, designed for the world of tomorrow, is being drafted. It's better to create a law which is for the world of tomorrow rather than creating laws which are totally outdated and outmoded like we constantly keep doing. So I think it's better to wait for the data privacy law, but on digitization, India has done enormously well. India is way ahead of the rest of the world in terms of having provided identity, bank accounts, digital fast payments. We do about 11x fast payments than what USA and Europe do. We do 4x of what China does. We do about 50% of the real-time fast payments in the world. India needs, really, it's a model which we've created for the rest of the world as very distinct from the big tech model of USA, as very distinct from the GDPR model of Europe, which has killed innovation. But India has allowed private-public partnership to take place in digital. You know, that's why the cost of acquisition of customers in it used to be $30 per customer before all the digital digitization and the bank accounts had taken place, it's come down to $1. In United States, the cost of customer acquisition is still about $100. That's why a company like Jio could actually acquire 250 million consumers in just about 100 days. I mean, many of us don't realize this, but India is really pole vaulted in this area.
Can
That's
we
perfectly
therefore be?
fine.
Sorry.
Sorry,
You
I
want to
want-
say?
yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have come to question. That's perfectly fine, but before the law comes in, a robust law, I hope, but all the data that we have, it's already in government hand and in private hands, which actually compromise privacy. Means how do we protect that? Because we do not have a law still.
So, India is the only country which has created a techno-economic solution for that, that the data is owned by the citizens of India. So account aggregator system or OECN or even your digital fast payments, you actually, the data belongs to you. You give actual permission for use, which is not the case with big tech in United States. The data is owned by the big tech. It's actually innovation in the last 2 decades have been driven by Google, by Facebook, by Amazon, by Microsoft, by Apple, and in the case of China, by Tencent and Alibaba. Not in India. India, we created a public layer, and on top of which we've allowed PhonePe to compete with Google Pay. We've allowed Paytm to compete with WhatsApp. That's the competition taking place in the marketplace. So 40 different startups are competing with each other in the market space. It's not happening anywhere else in the world. There's been a true democratization of digital technologies in India.
Let's take that to the next level, which is why can't an Indian company become like Amazon? Why does it sort of look at its own navel all the time? We have set up the base, the foundation, the India stack and everything else. All it needs is to leapfrog. Like you said, we should be world leaders in this. Why aren't we world leaders in e-commerce?
So I really feel that in the coming years, you will see a lot of young Indian startups doing that kind of a disruption and penetrating global markets. After all, we've been able to create, I mean, look at what we did. I gave you the story of payment, but look at the next step. You had the next set of startups like Lending Card, MobiKwik, all doing credit, which was paperless, cashless. And then on the payment history, you had a next set of startups like Zerodha, Grow, Upstock. Look at Zerodha. 30% of your stock market is being controlled by Zerodha. In 5 to 6 years' time, 30% of the startup means that he's penetrated tier 2, tier 3, he's penetrated rural areas. And then you had a next set of startups which are doing insurance, end-to-end insurance. I used to buy an insurance policy, it used to take me 5 months, 6 months. They do insurance in 2 unicorns. Let me tell you these. These are unicorn models which are going to the rest of the world.
I'm going to deviate from the subject that we are in South India because we have you as G20 Sherpa, and we just want a quick update. Where have we reached? Are we going to get any resolution on the Ukraine question in G20, or are we going to duck that aside? What are the big takeaways you're seeing for the summit ahead?
So Raj, first thing is that on all priorities, we are being very ambitious. It's important to understand that Russia-Ukraine is an important issue as far as Europe is concerned. But there are many other important issues. There's an important issue because you have 1/3 of the world in recession. You have 200 million people who've gone below poverty line. You have 100 million people who've lost their jobs because of COVID. You have 75 countries which are facing a global debt crisis. You have an issue of climate action and climate finance. All these are very critical, very major issues of the world. So it's not possible for us to forget all these critical issues which are impacting the global south, emerging markets, developing markets, and just keep focusing on Russia and Ukraine like you are doing. That's an issue which is important, but not the most important issue for us. So we need to bring developmental issues to center stage, and that is what we are doing. We are being ambitious in all other issues. And if there is a challenge of Russia, Ukraine, we'll do our best to bring consensus. We'll do our best to request all countries, because after all, G20 works by consensus. And in Indonesia, actually, all ministerials had not succeeded. But in the final round, we were able to hammer out a paragraph 3 and 4, which brought everybody together. So I'm quite optimistic. I'm very hopeful that ultimately we'll bring everybody around. But in the meanwhile, we should push all these issues which are impacting the global south.
Yeah. And if you had to give us a status report, where do you see the breakthroughs? Is there a big 2 or 3 big breakthroughs that you think we could achieve in the G20?
No, we are being very, very decisive. We are being very inclusive. We are being very ambitious. We are being very action-oriented, as the Prime Minister has said. And the Prime Minister is the leader. He's been very, very action-oriented. We've pushed through very, very decisive things in our G20.
1 or 2 things that you push through, you think that is going to be successful?
SDG action plan. We are pushing a green development agenda. We are pushing for a lot of digital transformation of the world. All these are very, very, I mean, look at this. 4 billion people in the world do not have a digital identity. 3 billion people do not even have a bank account. 133 countries do not even have a fast payment mechanism. During COVID, we were able to put money into the bank accounts of 800 million people rather than giving large packages. We were able to protect our population. And therefore, we need to take this model to the rest of the world. That is what the G20 is attempting to do.
Quick question, last question, Kaushik.
It's a kind of out of syllabus question. You have worked very closely with Prime Minister Modi, and you are a kind of superstar bureaucrat. Now, recently, Mr. Rahul Gandhi has said that Modi can even teach the God and can confuse the God. So now, working with the Prime Minister, do you think he comes to you as the God, or he's keen to listen to bureaucrats or people who work with him? Do you believe in the Rahul Gandhi's assessment of Prime Minister Modi? Because you have worked very closely with the Prime Minister.
No, I don't want to get into politics. That's not my objective. But I worked with the Prime Minister. I was a secretary, DIPP, Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, 9 years back. So I've been working with him for about almost 9 years. All I can say is that the PM, and I worked with him on ease of doing business, opening up of the foreign direct investment regime. I have worked with him on a range of areas, including aspirational districts, Make in India, Startup India, all these whole range of areas. Let me tell you that when we started Startup India, there were just about 450 odd startups. Today, we have 99,000 startups in India. And the Prime Minister is very futuristic. He's very visionary. He's a tough, hard master. He wants delivery on ground, and he ensures, and that's the reason, that's the only reason why we've been able to work. He believes in breaking silos, and that's the reason why we've been able to do, I mean, look at the size and scale of the transformation. It's important to understand this. I keep saying this because 40 million houses is like making a house for every Australian. I mean, 243 million water connection is like providing a water connection to everybody in Brazil, and 110 million toilets, 2.5 billion COVID vaccination during COVID. Nowhere in the world has this happened. And that's why, the Bank of International Settlement, BIS, in a study has said that India achieved in 8 years what it would have taken 50 years to achieve. 8 years, what it would have taken 50 years to achieve. And actually that has been reiterated by the new Morgan Stanley study. So India's remarkable in delivery on ground. I did the aspirational district program. These were all backward districts, the most backward districts in India. Nothing was working. Far-flung, geographically far-flung areas. He asked us to work only on data, on competition, on putting the ranking out in public domain. And districts were transformed in 4 years' time, simply because of competition, data, good governance.
Well, let's use your slogan that you use for tourism. It's Incredible India. Amitabh, thank you very much, Amitabh Khan, for this. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a very warm round of applause.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I'd like to call upon Mr. K.S. Srinivas, Principal Secretary, Kerala Tourism, to hand over a token of appreciation to Mr. Amitabh Khan. All right. Our next session is Gender, the Other Frontiers to Conquer. And I'd like to invite the session moderator, Nabila, anchor and deputy editor, India Today, and to introduce our speakers on the stage.
A very good morning, all of you. I'm Nabila. Thank you very much for joining us at our 5th edition of our India Today South Conclave. It's my absolute pleasure today to be hosting a bunch of really talented women who are smart, who hold their ground, and who yet deliver on the expectations the society has. I'm going to try and capture from them on their challenges and how they wade through their daily lives and get thrive. Thank you very much for joining us. Can I please have on stage Dr. R. Bindu, Minister for Higher Education and Social Justice of Kerala. A big round of applause for her, please. We also have Methil Devika, who's a dance exponent and academician, who's a two-time award winner for her Mohiniyattam. She's part of the Oscar contention for her works as well. So a real pride for India. We also have Mridula Ramesh, who is an author, founder of the Sundaram Climate Institute, a vociferous voice for climate change. She'll be giving us a sense on how climate change impacts women. That's an area of interest for me as well. Thank you very much. A big round of applause again, guys. Right. Thank you very much for joining us. I know this must have been, I'd like to start here and begin with, not to sound too, I'll get straight to my question. What were the challenges to come to this stage, this event here today? What was your routine right from the start of the day? Why don't you start, Ms. Bindu? How did you start the day today?
First of all, I'll wholeheartedly thank the organizers for inviting me to this conclave. I have many meetings today, so it's difficult for me to spend much time here, but at the same time, I want to share my concerns associated with the gender ideology existing in society, because it largely influences the power structure.
Yes.
So, as an activist, I am interested in changing this scenario. I want it to be a public sphere which is women friendly, transgender friendly.
Lovely.
So our Indian society is primarily hierarchical, pyramidal, and women reside at the bottom. A sincere approach should be there to change it.
This platform here today is one step towards that.
Yeah, I think
belief.
so. Because India Today is an established journal, so it will be nice to meet and to exchange my ideas with them. So it will reach a wide audience.
Absolutely, Ms. Bindu. And it's our absolute pleasure to hear you out. The reason why I started right from your routine of this morning is to just give a perspective to our viewers here on where we're getting at. The challenges of a woman, right? It's a daily struggle, and not to sound as if we're victims of it. We're thoroughly enjoying it. I'm sure all of y'all are enjoying that journey. But it's just to empower the bunch who are possibly idolizing you and looking up to you, because it's hard. It's not easy. I'd say that time and again. Ms. Bindu, give us your routine. What did you start your day with? What did you do today right from the morning?
Meetings and meetings.
And
And as ministers, we have to meet people also. It's a busy schedule. At the same time, there are the responsibilities associated with the family-centered ideology. Wherever I go, I take my house in my head.
yes.
That is very difficult for us to completely eradicate that familial obligations.
How are you? Have children, ma'am?
Yeah, I have only one. He is 30 years old, but still the family-centered ideology is haunting me throughout my career. That is there.
So you check on your 30-year-old boy.
Yeah.
A mother will be a mother.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and this is, you say you carry your home on your phone all along, right? Your family members, do they contribute at home for you? Because you're a minister, you have a lot more bigger responsibilities.
Yeah, sure. But at the same time, we cannot completely ignore such responsibilities associated with the domestic front. That is the peculiarity of our power hierarchy. Actually, we have to reconceptualize our family structure based on democratic sharing, love, and mutual respect. Then only we can aspire to be a democratic and equal society.
Absolutely. And yeah, I'll get to that later. I wanted to make a statement here, but maybe it could wait for a little while. Devika, who's a dancer herself, she's made India proud on several platforms. Devika, why don't you give us a sense of your day right from the start today?
As of today, I didn't have much of a challenge because I think it was pre-planned, except that I had to, I think, reorganize my class sessions and had to convince a couple of my students who are in different time zones
Yeah.
that I had a very important session today. And apart from that, of course, I wished I had, I had multiplied myself on other levels where you have to make the food, close the doors, stuff like that. But otherwise, it was pretty airy-fairy, I must say.
Right. Does anyone else take up responsibility for that, or is that your?
Not really. My son's he's not with me now. He's working. He's studying in Bangalore. He was with me, but as of now, it's just myself. Who's fairly easy.
So it's fairly easy for you, Mridula.
I'll sort of go back to when school opens because I think that's a more relatable day. I think it starts with that half an hour, 45 minutes before you get the kids to school. I mean, it's like a set of tasks of a choreographed ballet dance. If one goes off kilter, your whole day falls apart.
Yeah.
And I think we all need to keep that in mind, because if any solution that you put for any problem in the world doesn't work with that degree of pressure, it's going to fail. The one thing that comes to mind when I try to navigate my day, actually two things. One is trade-offs. And I think we spoke about that before. I think if you're navigating a career or couple of careers and children, you have trade-offs every day. And I think, there are things you can't do. You can't cook every meal. The meals won't be of that great quality. You will not be present for every school activity. It's not going to happen, right? And in meetings, you can't meet everyone you want. You can't travel as much as you want. There may be that extra bit of networking that you need to do, or that extra sales push. You can't do it. And I think that those trade-offs come as part of life. The thing that I'm most grateful for is family support. And I really echo what the minister said, that you have to rethink families, because my kids, I couldn't have managed to come here with my kids if my mother hadn't helped me. I can't travel if my husband doesn't help me. So I think those two, trade-offs, and family
When you
support.
say
is-
trade-offs, I translate that to sacrifices. I would translate that to sacrifices.
I would rephrase that as prioritization.
Prioritization.
Prioritization. I mean, you have to give up your nice to haves to focus on the need to haves. I think that's really important. And that is very central to something that is increasingly spoken of today, which is identity. You have to be clear of what you are, what you want, and focus on the need to haves that support that vision.
You know, why I started with that is because all of us know three of your achievements. I've introduced you all as fabulous women who've really thrived in your respective fields. But a little insight into your personal life gives us an understanding on the challenges that you face on a daily basis. How far in your daily lives do you really believe that patriarchal traditions so ingrained that you can't fight it? It's a society that is patriarchal. You really cannot possibly do anything to change that, and it's ingrained not just and you know, subconsciously ingrained even in your minds. All of us are accepting of it in a sense. Would you say that, Mridula? I'll start with you this way.
See, let me be perfectly honest. In my life, patriarchy has taken a back step. When I started my life, I worked for my father. I started my life, not too many people know this, as a truck mechanic. So, you know, under the truck, I can strip and put apart a truck, or at least I could 20 years ago. So my family has been very supportive, working women, working grandmothers, mother-in-law, mothers, aunts. So that was kind of the norm in the
All
family.
of you all have worked, no doubt, but handling the house is also your duty.
100% family falls on the woman. That's why I completely support what the minister says, that rethinking needs to happen, right? That today, I mean, when I talk to 70% in one company that I help run is women. 81% of another company that I run higher is women. I think every day the leave that they put, my child is not well, my mother-in-law is not well, my husband is not well. The husband may not be working, may not be contributing to the family, but he will not lift a hand to look after his mother or his child.
Correct.
The woman is expected to step up. I think that norm has to change.
Right? Devika, responsibility of a family on you, career is secondary, is usually the way it's looked at.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, because the society has ingrained in you certain stuff. I'd like to give a small example from my own form, where they speak of the Mugdha Nayika as somebody who was very young and immature and starts asking questions. And the Pragalpa was very mature. But it is time to rewrite all that, because how is the Pragalpa mature? I mean, is she matured by social conditioning, or has she fallen into norms? So for me, to come back to your child consciousness and to have the fearlessness to ask questions as to is this how it should be there. It is very important today that we even rewrite terminologies. Most of the time, this is all, we've taken it for granted that unless we are in a different situation, we wouldn't understand that we are also a part of the entire system.
Yeah.
So I'm working, I think I'm very articulate with my performance than my words, but I think the present work that I'm doing is a conversation between the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
And that is a work that I'm doing. So most of the time, we don't even have women composers for dance. We've only had, a Swati Tirunal or a Niraiman Thambi or, the Dikshidhar. They're fabulous, but I'm saying to talk about women as an entity and our sense of love, longing, vatsalya, everything is so different. So what happens now is you have to pretty much write your own script, get it translated, and bring it out to the public. So it is only unless you step out of your domain and start talking to other people that you understand, hey, there's a problem. For example, my own art form, right? If you look at performing arts in general, it may look we have even engendered art form. We have engendered subjects.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about just male or female. A performing arts or a subject in humanities seems feminine, right? So it is a challenge for me, especially in the projects that I'm doing now.
Yeah.
It's going to be a challenge.
The fact that we are speaking of it, I'd say that again is wonderful. possibly is a breakthrough for many other women who are following suit. Ms. Bindu, how intrinsic is a patriarchal mindset in your surroundings, within your ecosystem, even as a minister and your daily functioning? Would you want to give us, quote some examples for us?
As a minister, for the time being, I am relieved of my responsibilities associated with family, especially the kitchen. But before that, I was working as a college teacher. I was the mayor of the city, and I was actively involved in politics. During those days, it was really difficult for me, and it was like a journey through embers, walking above embers. Yeah, walking through fire. It was very difficult for me. For each and every woman, it will be like that because it's very difficult to cope up with the family-centered ideology and to be actively involved in the public sphere.
Absolutely, especially politics. I'm sure I can't even imagine the kind of
Yeah.
walls you had to shatter to, and people to convince.
Yeah, and as Medil Devika has put it, a proper mindset is being built up by conditioning individuals, even from their childhood. The boy's place is this, girl's place is this. The boy is given guns. We have to talk, we have to begin with the politics of toys. Boys are given guns. They have to be aggressive. This is a silent call for them to be aggressive. And girls are given utensils, Barbie dolls, kitchen sets. You have to play with kitchen sets. Your place is the kitchen. This is part of our social conditioning, even from the childhood itself. So the primary place allocated for a woman in this family-centered ideology is kitchen or largely family.
Correct.
100 years ago, a slogan echoed in Kerala's public sphere, that is, Adikkalayil ninna Arangathekku, from the kitchen to the public sphere. Even after 100 years, we miserably failed to fully realize it.
Yes.
Yeah. Now we have Kudumbashri movement, which is being presented as a very proud organization for women. But still, the responsibilities associated with the family, they are still there without being shared.
Yeah, you don't speak about it aloud. You just embrace it, and a lot of women do it with absolute pride. Like I said, this is ingrained so much in the system and within ourselves that at one point I hear women say very proudly, "Yeah, it's my responsibility, and I do it with a smile. I have no qualms in delivering it." While a lot of them are happy to do it, a lot of them may not. They just go along with it. But and maybe now is the right time to say it after we've said enough, and maybe in a way thrown a shadow on the men. I'd still like to clarify. Thank you for all the men in all of your lives and mine. For the encouragement and the nurturing and the fact that we are thriving here today. I think that
That's
credit
true. That is true.
also goes to the men in our lives. I'm sure all of you all would agree.
Yeah.
So because it's unconscious conditioning even on them. They're just playing the role and are the outcome of tradition. So can't really blame one another. But maybe time to rewrite that or change it in every sense. Ms. Bindu, as you're a Minister of Education here in the state, Kerala is known to be one of the most literate states. When you speak of education among women, would you give us some statistics to show how Kerala women are a lot more empowered? There's a lot of praise for Kerala and education. Tell us more in the women front.
In the case of participation of women in higher education, 56% of girls participate in higher education sector in Kerala. This is the highest in the nation. But still, our female literacy rate and educational participation are high. But still, the problem of agency should be noted. The agential capacity, the intervening capacity, that is comparably low in Kerala. So we have to raise the level of agential potency among girls and women.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and that was one of my questions, Devika. I'd like to ask you on that, on the right we have on our own bodies when it comes to the reproductive system itself and the decisions that we want to make to have a child or not. The kind of influence that family has on that decision to do with your body.
Yeah, I mean, but a lot of it is changing. I don't think we should go back to that. Now in this postmodern era, all these differences are now narrowing down. But personally, in my spaces, I think I do an art form called Mohiniyattam, which has been dictated also by, it has had its leanings in matrilineal society, but it is also dictated by a patriarchal system who impose the concept of lasya and sensuousness. Now, if you ask me, when people see dance, they see dance more of a commodity fetishism. There is the problem of ageism, which is very rampant on stage. People above the age of 60 hardly get an opportunity to perform.
Yeah.
Right? So what happens to them? There's this mass of, there's this wealth of information they've had for themselves. And what happens to that? And it was during the COVID period that we really didn't understand that, what, especially artists, what do we make out of our art? So there are these expectations. You're expected to, look good, or you're expected to, churn out stories, about characters. And the moment you talk about social responsibility, people raise their eyebrows. The moment you're not talking about the Sakhis or the Nayikas longing for the Sakhis, it's a different story altogether. But for me, even this whole aspect to do with your body, for my recent project with Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology, I think that is a project, I would say it's an arts integrated project into advanced science.
Yeah.
And that is one of the major projects that's happening now under ISRO. So, when I presented the project, it was a part of a larger, it's just a small part of a larger project. But I did understand that, when we were talking about making or putting our domain into another space, it did seem like, at many times seemed like, a feminine subject getting into the domain of a macho, advanced science subject. But I think it is important to have permissibility and permeability right now. If you keep talking about, the women's bodies, I don't think, or other reproduction issues, I don't think we're going to solve matter. I think the thing is, the conquering is more in the seeking than in, bantering about the past. I think we create examples and let them know, hey, we are here to do this. We have something to offer you. We're talking about arts, the national education policy, which comes in 2030. It has to start right there from the education.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Mridula, if I could wade into this, I know your daughter is here with you. You're a responsible mother. You've been, bringing her, at least moving her around wherever you're going, because that's your responsibility. You like it, I suppose, as well. But we did have this talk on idolizing how a perfect mother should be. I mean, the society branding a good mother, a bad mother. If you're not focused around the child's education, or you're not really guiding the child the right, I don't know what is right or wrong anymore. But this whole idolizing a perfect mother, how do you look at that?
Let's take mothers from the wild. Okay, you see a tiger mother, right? Mothers very differently kills the prey while she's mothering. She's fully pregnant and she's still hunting.
Yeah.
Right. You see king cobras who leave their children. You see turtles which leave their hatchlings and go away. I think there is no one size fit all, and I think that's something we have to take away. And again, I mentioned trade-offs again and again. My mother is here, my daughter is here. I think it's something you carry with you. You can't split those two parts.
And what are the trade-offs for you? You said something to me. What are the trade-offs? What has been the trade-off for you?
I have to define, again, it comes back to identity. What do I want to get out of my career? And I'm very privileged to be able to make that call. And what is the most important thing I can do for my children? I can't focus on the nice to haves. I can't make them a cake or, make sure the vegetables are washed or sit in, all the things that would be nice to have.
Every PTA meeting, every class.
And, on the men thing that you said, my husband takes the lion's share. Otherwise, I cannot do what I'm doing. So, without my husband or my mother's help, I can't do what I'm doing. So, very clear on that.
And your subject is also something of a great interest. You did speak of climate change and how climate change impacts women more, in your view. Give us a little understanding on that, how it sharpens inequality.
Okay. See, climate, everybody who talks on climate talks on cutting carbon emissions, right? India should cut carbon emissions. Sure. And we're doing a pretty good job. We're getting our carbon intensity down big time while we're growing. But what is less talked about is that India is probably the most vulnerable country to climate change. And none of us from here, we've had the floods. We have Chennai, which goes between flood and drought every 2 years, right? And what climate change is worldwide is it's the most inequalizing force. Any lever of power, it hits that and makes it more unequal. I'll just talk about one thing about women.
Yeah.
Violence. We talk about that very often in India, violence against women. There are studies in the US that says for every degree of increase in temperature, domestic violence goes up by 7%.
Oh.
There is a study I have spoken about in my last book, which has looked at a decade of data over India and found that every time rainfall drops by a standard deviation, dowry deaths go up. Okay,
Very
and it's a
interesting.
consistent finding because, it's very inhumane, but people think you kill your first wife, marry a second wife, it's income during a time that your income falls during a drought. So, and if you take floods, the children get sick, who has to take care of them at home? It's the woman, which means less time to work, less time to make a contribution, less leisure. So I think that's something that we need to talk about when we talk about climate justice and climate vulnerabilities. We do need to acknowledge
Very interesting
that gender.
perspective. Never thought of that. And it sounds about right, Ms. Bindu. Would you agree?
I perfectly agree. 70% of Indian women are victims to domestic violence. This is an accepted fact. So it's very difficult for a woman to realize her complete potential in such a context. This is the specificity of Indian situation. Compared to other countries, India has become the most dangerous society for women to live. That's it. There are certain historical reasons for this. It's a curious combination. Indian society is a curious combination of the remnants of degenerated feudalist roots and market-oriented ethos of capitalism.
Right.
Both these anti-women values associated with these systems crumble down women. So we are being compelled to live in a suffocating atmosphere left by the degenerated values of feudalism combined with the market-centered attitudes associated with capitalism. That is what is being seen
And the
in
fact
India.
fact of the day today.
Yeah,
But we've come a long way as we're already run out of time. Devika, would you like to give me a sense of how far we've come as a woman? Personally, and what we see in a society today, more number of women into becoming entrepreneurs, into every field and every stream of work. You see women, but yet the irony is in offices, in corporate offices, the number of women have reduced in compared to the past. Over the last few years, the statistics show lower number of women in the corporate structure. Not too sure if women are going back to the traditional way. Don't know what that is really all about, but Ms. Bindu, your take on that?
Yeah, that's because of the neoliberal policies, obviously.
So policy is not supporting women enough.
Yeah.
And women in politics, representation itself so low.
It's very low. It's very low.
How would we change that, ma'am, quickly?
Yeah, we have to make an attitudinal change in the society. Then only we will be able to overcome all these hurdles. We have to change the attitudes. We have to change women also. Actually, now women are seen as passive objects, not as active agents. women themselves have to reconceptualize themselves as active agents who can intervene in the public sphere, who can talk about all these things.
Lovely. Devika, finally.
But in my fraternity, the women's representation are pretty high, I must say. Even a lot of women's narratives are also there. And I think in my sphere, there is, because there is something so sanctimonious about the space of a performer, of an Indian, I would not say classical performer, because again, the correct translation of, Shastriya Nrita is not classical. I think it should be scientific dancing, because the moment you say classical, you're talking about mass also.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a discrimination happening there. So, but in my sphere, people don't enter that sphere very, very fast. So you're more liberated to talk about issues, and also to delve into women's narratives where you could question writers, you could question the Puranas, you needn't eulogize deities, but you can humanize. You can humanize gods or even women, and that is where the connect us. You can find legitimate endings to problems that were never solved in the past, right? And women have gone a long way, I must say, but there is still miles to go.
A long way to go, absolutely. A final word from you, Mridula.
So, see, I think this, again I'll come to the word trade-offs and make it about prioritization. So easy to play the victim card and say, oh, all this is stacked against me. But in my life, I've always found within each of us, there is some power. Maybe you cannot become the president or something like that, but you can. There is a president. There is a president. There is a president.
No, don't you dare say that.
No, but every day comes with a hope that there is a power that you can take and you can act. Maybe small, but if you build on it over time. Working as a woman is not easy. Let's be very honest.
Correct.
But it is infinitely rewarding. I'll leave it there.
Absolutely. All of us have ambitions, as much as responsibilities are, as much as you embrace it, there's also a burning fire to become successful in whatever respective field that you're in. And congratulations for paving the way for many, many more women who are watching and looking up to you. Thank you very much for joining us here today. And as I would say, and if I may, Devika is a fabulous Mohiniyattam dancer. She's an award winner, and she has humbly agreed, for my humble request, she has agreed to do a small performance for us. A big round of applause for Devika. And if I may ask my other panelists to please be seated, and let's watch Devika in action. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. Ms. Bindu is Minister for Higher Education, State of Kerala. Devika, a fabulous dancer. Mridula, an entrepreneur herself, a climate change voice. Thank you very much, our guests, for joining us here today.
I want the mic. Yeah. So I had no other option but to agree. Although, Mohiniyattam, they said they want something only for 5 minutes. But to start Mohiniyattam also takes 5 minutes. So I had to really concise it. Well, I'll give you a gist of what I'm doing. It's just an excerpt from the famous Chidambaram Stotram. The myth is this, that Patanjali, I'm talking about the Patanjali of Yoga Sutra. Patanjali visits Chidambaram and he wants to see Lord Nataraja, and of course Nataraja's secretary Nandi stops him as usual. And Patanjali breaks out into this beautiful verse, and apparently Nataraja came out of the sanctum sanctorum, and because it was at the behest of somebody else, it was more graceful. It had a lot. It was unhurried. It had restraint, and this is beautifully compared to the dance of the male peacock. And this focuses on the lasya, or the feminine, or the grace of the masculine. So just taking a bit of this, sung by my singer Kalamallam Vinod and composed by me. Thank you.
మదంజిత నిగుంజిత పదం ఝల ఝల ఝలిత మంజు కటకం.
Oh my God. That was fantastic. Devika, I'd like you to please stay on stage. In fact, to a quick mention here, Devika was on the Oscars contention list in 2018, nearly selected into the Oscars. So she's really made India proud on that global stage. Appreciate you agreeing to put up that performance. I'd like to also call Miss Bindu, our Health Education Minister for the state of Kerala, on stage. A quick felicitation, please. Calling on stage. Also Mridula. Mridula, please come on stage. We'd like to call in Shushmita Nag, CMO Finesta, to felicitate our guests here today.
Thank you so much for all the speakers. Up next, we have a very fiery session. The most vocal Southern India politicians from various parties who will be speaking on the 2024 Lok Sabha elections, and the most watched session. I can promise you that all the four speakers would be speaking their minds. Target 2024, Who Will Win the South? Sponsored by Radico. I'd like to invite the session moderator, Mr. Rajdeep Desai, consulting editor, India Today, onto the stage to introduce our panelists.
Thank you. May I invite the panelists in the order that we have them here. Manikam Tagore, Congress MP from Tamil Nadu. K.R. Suresh Reddy, Telangana Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha, and a special warm wishes to you. It's your foundation day, so give them a very big hand. It's Telangana's big day today. Annamalai, President of the Tamil Nadu BJP, and a special thanks to him because he's come despite an attack of food poisoning. No conspiracy there. It was just something that he ate. And John Brittas is the Rajya Sabha CPIM fiery MP, former journalist turned Member of Parliament. Thank you all for joining us. Do sit. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the India Today South Conclave. Now, when you look at India geographically, it seems as if we are very different countries, particularly when you look at the Hindi heartland and the politics of the South. And as we build up to the big 2024 elections, the question is, who will win the South? That's what we're going to debate. And we have very special guests. Joining us, Manikam Tagore of the Congress Party, give him a big hand. Suresh Reddy of the Telangana, of the Bharat Rashtra Samiti now, the BRS from Telangana. Annamalai, the President of the Tamil Nadu BJP. And John Brittas, the CPIM MP from Kerala. So all bases covered. And I'm going to start with the man in the middle. Annamalai, you're in a way encircled by three people who may well represent anti-BJP voices. So I want to start with you because soon after the victory in Karnataka, the Congress leadership claimed that the South has become BJP mukt, BJP Mukh Dakshin. How do you respond to those who say the South is now a fortress which the BJP is unable to breach? It's the last frontier.
Good afternoon, Rajya. Thank you so much for inviting me here. We all know in the state of Karnataka, coming to the first part of your question, it's a very, very different state electorally. After 1985, no state has come back to power for the second time, even for Congress multiple times. Last 36 years, nobody could repeat it. This time we were hopeful that we should be the party that is repeating it, not so. But having said it, BJP has retained its vote share, 36%. We have done fairly well, considering 3 chief ministers in 5 years, 2 chief ministers in BJP for the last 5 years. And we are pretty results. You are a senior political person. Now 25 out of 27 BJP has got, will repeat again. Now coming to the Congress of Congress Mukh Bharat, of course Pondicherry, BJP has made a mark. We are part of a coalition government. Our ministers are there. But South this time, 2024 would be the time which will have a breakout for BJP, especially in states like Tamil Nadu and Telangana. Along with Karnataka and Kerala, we see a huge breakout. I will explain in the subsequent when you give me opportunity to answer. So it is a one-off election in Karnataka because of the local nature of politics. Nothing more should be read into it with respect to the whole South Indian dynamics.
No, but may I just for a moment pursue you on the fact that if I look at hard data, in the 2019 elections, you didn't get a single seat in Andhra Pradesh, you didn't get a single seat in Tamil Nadu, and you didn't get a single seat here in Kerala. You got 25 in Karnataka and 4 in Telangana. So out of 130 seats, you got 29, your ally AIDMK won. What does that suggest? Would you agree that this is, the southern India is still a bridge too far as of today for the BJP? I'm not looking at the future, but as of today, it's a bridge too far going ahead into 2024. What will change in the next 12 months?
I will not use the word called bridge too far. Agreed. Before 2014, the southern Indian politics was very different. BJP, I would say, had a late start in Tamil Nadu, especially in many southern states. Congress was in power multiple times. Likewise, regional parties were in power multiple times. The Vajpayee era, we got a big jump. Tamil Nadu had seen 4 MPs at one point of time in Vajpayee era. After 2014, the party is growing rapidly, especially with the addition of leaders. Grassroots is building up. That is why I made this statement. The breakout performance is going to happen in 2024 for a variety of reasons. Whatever development work happens in southern Tamil Nadu, my friends sitting along with me, the major point of contention they keep is what about Tamil pride? What about Kannada pride? What about Malayalam pride? This is how the politics was happening in the southern state. This time it is G has done. And a combination of the cultural renaissance, what has happened for Tamil Nadu, Kasi Tamil Sangamam, Saurashtra Tamil Sangamam, the great Sengol president in parliament, which is after 1947. So this combination should push us together over the line. The breakout performance we'll see in 2024.
So you're saying development plus an element of national pride embodied in Prime Minister Modi. Am I correct?
Absolutely, sir. That is how it is going to be this time.
Manikam Tagore, because, you know, the Congress seems to believe that Karnataka is India. We won Karnataka, we are going to win the South, we are going to win India. Karnataka may not necessarily be replicable rest of the country. According to Annamalai, general elections will be very different, in particular to a state election where you've had traditional anti-incumbency for more than 3 decades.
Every election, thank you so much. Every election is a different election first. Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala, and Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, from beginning itself, after the independent India itself, is not a field where the hate politics has any kind of entrance itself. BJP in the Deccan could not enter into the basic of their hate politics on religious basis or whatever basis they had expanded for long. The hate politics of BJP, particularly the RSS-backed hate politics, doesn't have a scope in southern part of Tamil Nadu, the southern part of India, except in Karnataka, where they were able to break these Janata Parivar's one group of Mr. Ramakrishna Hegde, and they entered into that. The mistakes of Mr. Devagoda and others allowed BJP's entrance into Karnataka. Therefore, they captured with that thing all the Karnataka leaders. You take any Karnataka leader of the BJP, maybe the ex-chief minister who has just been voted out, are all ex-Janata fellows who had been with Ramakrishna Hegde. Therefore, that model of BJP to replicate in any other state, in Karnataka itself it is failing. Other states also it's going to be difficult because in southern India, the politics of education based on a primary education, health, and other issues on which real social and economic challenges are there. It's a
He
different ground.
says Modi factor. You're saying hate politics. Annamalai is saying development plus Modi factor will become the breakout moment in 2024.
Modi is the person. When we say Modi in southern part of Tamil Nadu, people doesn't vote for it. That's the thing. I have to ask only one thing: whether you want a Modi government in central, people will not vote for it. That's my constituency, and there only I will get elected.
So you're saying Mr. Modi is not a factor?
Modi is not a workable factor in southern part of India, except in few states in Karnataka. Therefore, only previous year also they had shown Modi as the biggest things. 2 elections they had been defeated.
Okay, before I come to the other panelists, you want a quick response to that? Mr. Modi is not a factor in southern India. We've seen even in our polls, Mr. Modi's popularity much higher in the northern part and the western part than in southern India. Somehow, even Mr. Modi finds South India at times a bridge too far.
No, sir, for the Modi factor to work, of course, it's a great leader, amazing personality. The party has to be strong, grassroots has to be organized to convert the Modi's charisma to votes. That is a problem which for the last 10 years, the party is building up. In case of Tamil Nadu, the kind of respect Modi ji enjoys is so high. But to translate that into votes is the party's problem, which we are addressing it. Second, if I go to Manickam Thakurji's constituency, I think bulk of his voters are cracker industry people, 8 lakh, 7 lakh, 6 lakh. Who solved their problem? It is Modi ji. Who stopped the Chinese crackers from coming in? Modi ji. Who is solving the crackers issue in Supreme Court? We are. So Manickam Thakurji will see in 2024, I'm talking of a localized phenomenon, how tough it will be for him to get elected in 2024 also. He will see, thanks to Modi ji, very specific to his constituency, very specific to the cracker industry.
Okay. Manickam Tagore is staying calm. One of the good things about the South is politicians don't instantly respond. There is a calmness that Kerala and southern India brings, southern comfort. But Mr. Suresh Reddy, how calm are you? Because the next big election is in Telangana. And one thing that we've seen in the last 5 years, the BJP is growing in Telangana. The BJP won a by-election from Karimnagar. The BJP did very well in the Hyderabad municipal elections, became the principal opposition. It has a large Muslim population. Therefore, you could argue the BJPs may be able to play on the demographics of Telangana. How worried are you going into the Telangana election? The BJP is emerging now as a challenger in the state of Telangana.
Thanks, Rajdeep, because I begin my India Today innings with you. So very happy about it. The only thing going south for BJP is its graph.
Only thing south going for the BJP is its graph.
Is its graph. And I say that with the reason that BJP had an opportunity in Karnataka. Wherever state governments were functioning, BJP was one of the state governments running in Karnataka. The performance, the election results have shown what the performance was. Now coming to Hyderabad. Well, you're talking about BJP winning 1 seat or a couple of seats in the municipal elections and about 3-4 seats in parliament. In my view, that's not a big number. The reason being, in Telangana, in the last 9 years, we had 3 big elections, the 2014 election, the 2018 election, and 2019 election. And in all the 3 elections, TRS then, BRS now, consistently performed and increased its position from election to election. Number 1. It was not just limited only to the general elections. When you come down to the local elections, the municipal elections, the Zilla Parishad elections, the Sarpanch elections, BRS party swept the polls. How did it happen? How is it that BRS is winning Telangana continuously and BJP lost an opportunity in Karnataka? It is the regional performance. So when you come to South, Modi factor or the other factors what BJP is propagating will not work in South. What will work in South is the performance. And you're competing against performing leaders who have performed remarkably well.
You don't see any anti-incumbency after 10 years in power, creeping anti-incumbency against Mr. Chandrasekhar Rao?
Well, we had elections, a by-election just about 6 months back, and we won it. In spite of winning elections continuously, the fact of the matter remains that the policies, the programs, the visibility, availability of the leadership in Telangana is a clear indication that what people of the state want. It is not dramatics, or it is not a very aggressive media which works there. It is what's working on the ground.
So you're saying people in your state or indeed across the South vote for regional leaders on performance of regional governments. Am I correct? It's not about who runs Delhi, it's about who runs the states.
Well, historically, Rajdeep, if you look at it, the South was entirely under Congress control. Why did it wither away gradually? Because they could not reach out. The leadership in Delhi could not reach out, understand the ethos, understand the needs, and develop regional leadership. That's how the aspirations were not met. Okay. So this gave rise to regional parties. The regional parties not just merely to be regional, but to perform and show.
Okay, interesting. John Brittas, Kerala marches to its own beat. You have your own politics, which perhaps cannot be replicated anywhere else. Many believe the CPIM is actually a regional party in Kerala, with Mr. Pinarayi Vijayan a face of that regional party. Do you agree that you have a Kerala model for the CPIM that is limited today to Kerala?
Rajdeep, let me just make it very clear that whenever you have a discourse from Delhi or a Delhi-centric discourse, you find all the parties based in South being regional. We are as national as other parties who are based out of North India. So, as Suresh Reddy said, we would be national like those parties which are in Bihar or in Uttar Pradesh. Second thing is that, see, 18% of the population, that is South, we contribute 35% of the GDP because we have kept BJP away from South. That's it. And third thing, what is the Modi factor? Modi factor is creating laboratories in each state, Hindutva laboratory. It can be halal or hijab in Karnataka. It can be a Shengol in K Annamalai's place. It can be Shabarimala or something in Kerala. It can be something else in Telangana. This will not work in the South. And I can tell you that when you talk in terms of CPM politics, beyond our political reach, we have influence in the country, which you can recognize that. If you just look at the history of those non-BJP government, it was which was instrumental for such formations. So just because we are only, ruling Kerala, that doesn't mean that we are limited to the 4 boundaries of Kerala. Let me just make it very clear, Rajji. Before the so-called Modi factor, they had 1 assembly seat in Kerala. After the so-called Annamalai's Modi factor, ganged up, we closed that account. So we will make sure that there won't be any account being opened for BJP in Kerala. And out of 130 seats, they got maximum from Karnataka last time. That is 25 out of 28. I don't expect that to happen this time. Thank you.
You know, before, we will debate a lot of what you've said, but one thing you said, Sengol, you even suggested Sengol is a product of Hindutva politics. Is that, shouldn't you see it more as an issue of Tamil and a symbol of pride, of power, rather than also link it to Hindutva politics? It seems that whatever the BJP does, you're going to somehow or the other find a way to demonize it and say, this is Hindutva politics at work.
Rajdeep, the question is to me?
Yes.
See, let me
you raised the Sengol issue.
Let me just tell you one thing. I am being a member of parliament. See, I am ashamed about what things happened there in parliament inauguration. Sardar Patel, see, he did away with all the Shengol, Simhasan, crown, palace clowns, palace jodis. All these have been brought back to Indian politics after 75 years. Is that what the country wants now? Do you think that the southern people will cave into all these tamashas which is being played out there? Never. And I will tell you one thing, the Tamil Nadu people are intelligent enough to see through this game. Shengol is not going to work. If the government of India had invited
the Panjab presidents of this country for the inauguration of the parliament, I would have appreciated that. What do these sannyasis have to do with the parliament? Are they representatives of this India? Have they ever voted in an election? What nonsense is happening in this country? Do you think the people of South will stomach all this humbug that is being doled out?
Okay.
No, never.
You want to, Annamalai, you deserve a response. That is the BJP relying on symbolism. You bring the Singal, you think that it's going to invoke an element of Tamil sentiment, Tamil pride, and it will win you votes. You need to do more than just symbolism. Can you really challenge, for example, in your state, the powerful Dravidiya identity that has driven the politics of Tamil Nadu for more than half a century?
Firstly, to respond to John sir, the concept of Sengol is there in Sangam literature, which is 2000 years before. Even when the religion of Muslim was born, even when the religion of Christianity was born, the word Sengol is very specific. Thiruvalluvar again 2000 years back writes 10 Thirukural in the Adhikaram called Sengonmai for Sengol. Very unfortunate, very eminent leaders like John G, they try to equate cultural renaissance to BJP, which in a way I'm very proud of it. Because it is simply because after 1947, they've removed the soul of India, which means they've removed the soul of culture from the politics. And now when the soul is being brought back, I think they have a problem. The problem in South also, Rajibji, it is not BJP is fighting DMK. In Kerala, BJP has to find the tactical adjustment politics of Communist and Congress. When a BJP candidate is there, every election you look at it, it is not BJP versus Congress, BJP versus Communists. When BJP is there, both of them join together. The same thing in other southern states also. Coming to Suresh Reddy's argument, I think Telangana, he mentioned one by-election. What about the 3 by-elections prior to that? All the 3 by-elections BJP won. What about Hyderabad? BJP made a mark. I think we are living in a kind of paradise, a glass palace that we have built for ourselves. 2024, we are pretty sure. Tamil Nadu, we are not taking on one party, we are taking on multiple parties. Kerala, we are not taking on communists. We are taking on Communist and Congress who will do tactical adjustment to defeat BJP. The reason BJP is yet to make a mark because he mentioned 18% of population contributing 35%. I can show you in 1970, even before BJP was in picture, South was contributing more. In 1940-50, if I go, South was contributing more. That is not a label for us to proudly claim. When Nehruji shifted a lot of central government institutions to South, not because South has to prosper, simply because to escape the attack of China, to escape the attack of Pakistan, many critical central government institutions were shifted to Chennai and Bangalore. That helped the state to grow. When 1947, when the first cabinet was there was something called the freight equalization policy. When a coal was lifted from Jharkhand, when the coal is coming all the way to Tamil Nadu, the freight was equalized simply because Tamil Nadu and other states have to develop. And arguing that is only counterproductive. 2024, just I'll end the last point, sir. My friend Manik Thakur will immediately say one point. What about Tamil pride? For Sanskrit, you allocate more money. For Tamil, you allocate less money. In the public speeches, he keeps telling. When there are 17 Sanskrit institutes and 1 Tamil institute, the money allocation is proportionate to 17:1. Out of that institute, 90% Sanskrit institutes came before BJP. I requested the Tamil Nadu CM, if you really care about Tamil pride, you create more Tamil institutions, we will get you money from more. Tamil pride, Sanskrit versus Tamil, 18% contributing to 35. South is giving more tax so that Bihar and UP is growing. These are all arguments without any historical basis. The argument is happening in South.
John Britt has just raised his hand. So you want to respond to what was just said, particularly the tactical adjustment, according to Annamalai, between the Congress and the CPIM.
No, Rajdeep, let me just tell you one thing. I think I'm sorry to say that Thiru Annamalai is wrong on his statistics. Till 1970s, the growth of North and South was more or less equal. After 70s only, the South surpassed in the growth. That is there. If you just check the Niti Aayog or Planning Commission statistics, you will understand that. And second thing, what has happened now is that dismantling of the Planning Commission, usurping into the powers of the state, denying the states the rightful share of the resources of the center. Now, just see in 2023-24, 1,83,000 crores have been devoted to UP alone, whereas for all the South, it is 1,63,000 crores. See the disparity, discrimination that is happening. And I will tell you one more thing. There is 3D that is being practiced. One is dislodge the opposition government. If you cannot dislodge it, you disrupt it.
If you cannot disrupt it, you defame it. This is the 3D is the mantra of BJP, which will not work in the South.
You know, in the South, it appears from what I just heard that you'll almost feel as if you're being penalized. You know, that the center is penalizing you because you have a better track record on education, on health, because you work to bring your population levels down. You claim you are the sort of economic hub of the country, but you're being penalized, not getting enough back. Is that a fair assessment? Because surely all of this has been in the making over the last decade. It's not as if this has happened only after 2014. You know, all the, Mr. Bitters, the arguments you're making are not post 2014 only.
Yes, yes, I will tell you one line. What has happened now? See, after the 2014, see, there was a planning commission, there was gadget formula. All this has been dismantled. The only job of BJP is to construct building, demolish institutions. That is their hobby. And I will tell you one thing. What is happening now is that if you perform, you perish. Perform and perish.
That's Finance Commission. The Finance Commission is the one which is deciding on revenue sharing.
You build buildings, you demolish institutions. That is their habit.
Yes, Mr. Reddy.
Yeah, getting to Mr. Annamalai's the Bengal thing. He said it's the soul of India. If the soul of India is placed in Parliament, in my view, the soul of India is the debate in Parliament. The Bengal, of course, in my view, it just reminds me of part 2 of the King's coronation, the way the event took place. But again, Modi ji lost an opportunity while inaugurating the Parliament. How did he lose the opportunity? He could have assured the Honorable Speaker of his party support in ensuring that this new Parliament will ensure a good debate. He could have assured the Honorable Speaker that today only 14% of the bills are referred to the standing committees. He could have assured the Honorable Speaker. You could have availed that opportunity. But nothing came. The only thing came was population increase, number of seats increased. So obviously there'll be a new Bhavan. It's an opportunity lost for Mr. Modi and for BJP, I would feel.
I'll come to delimitation and what it could do to the map of India and the relations between southern states in the north in a moment. But Manikam Tagore, from what the BJP here is suggesting, they believe that they are bringing about a cultural renaissance. They believe a number of symbols, the Bengal is seen as a symbol, according to Annamalai, you can correct me, as cultural renaissance. Opponents are seeing it in narrow Hindutva terms. Do you believe that you can defeat the BJP by demonizing them on Hindutva politics? Or do you believe you are going to have to also offer a development agenda? In Karnataka, for example, you offered 5 guarantees and they seem to have worked. Basic guarantees to people. Is the Congress very clear that the battle in the south cannot be fought like it is in the north? You can't use Ram Mandir. They cannot use hijab, halal, azan possibly. You're going to have to find a different paradigm. Just as they've lost out, where are you? You are 0 seats today in Andhra Pradesh, a state that you were once powerful. In Telangana, you're on the back foot. In Kerala, it's Mr. Vijayan who's come to power. In Tamil Nadu, you're reliant on DMK. So it's all very well to attack BJP, but where is the Congress in the south?
To my friend Annamalai's Bengal thing. Usually, whenever election comes, BJP will come out with some kind of symbols. Previous assembly elections in Tamil Nadu, they came up with a veil, Murugan veil. Our union minister now, MOS, Murugan was taking veil everywhere. I suppose my friend also took it in Arvakurchi when he was vice president. With veil, they were having veil yatra across Tamil Nadu. For now, they are taking the Bengal because, as my friend was telling about that, it is very auspicious or Bengal is 9 years where this Bengal has gone. When Modi has come prime minister in 2014, where is that Bengal was there for 9 years? Why they were not speaking about it? For BJP, particularly the same model of everywhere, across India, they have a pattern, RSS pattern, that we will have symbolism and we will have Rath Yatra, we will take Ram, we will take somebody else. All this kind of, that is not going to work in Tamil Nadu. Bengal, after the Ponniyin Selvan film, They had got that Sengol story, and WhatsApp University is making out, and they are believing that it is going to make a big mark. Means that's not going to happen in the ground.
Yeah, but
it is the economic issues. It is the social justice issues.
But beyond Sengol, as I said, you are zero in Andhra Pradesh, a state you were in power. In Telangana, you are on the back foot. You've given up power to the in Kerala for the last decade now to the CPIM. Where is the Congress party? What's your model?
It's very simple, brother. You have to understand that Congress idea of Congress is occupied by Jagan-like parties, which Congress vote bank has shifted to Jagan because of the division, bifurcation of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. Therefore, we need to understand that the idea of Congress, the idea of inclusive society is being accepted in South India. It is not that hate politics of BJP or a religion-based politics of BJP is being accepted in Tamil Nadu.
You divided Andhra Pradesh. Let's be very clear.
Bifurcated.
Please do not blame anyone else but yourself for the division of Andhra Pradesh. You divided Andhra Pradesh between Andhra and Telangana.
We are proud that we had formed a state called Telangana, and the formation day is today, and we take full responsibility for that division of that state, and we take it pride. And I suppose that my friend Suresh should also give that credit to us that we had formed that state. But we kept our word.
Okay, but let me take that forward. Do you agree in both Telangana and in Andhra Pradesh today, the parties in power are regional parties? In a way, Jagan Mohan Reddy, YSRCP and BRS are regional parties. Have the national parties lost out to regional parties in the south who are more connected in a way through regional leadership, regional culture?
Andhra Pradesh is a different story because of the division. Congress vote bank shifted to Mr. Jagan, and therefore YSRP was formed, and they were able to keep that. It was on a pain they are fighting that election. Here in Telangana, this time BRS will be defeated because of high anti-incumbency and unemployment and agrarian crisis is in a big way. And I can say to you that this time KCR will be defeated. All the by-elections you are mentioning, I had been there in the by-elections, how money was flowing like water in Mungod as well as in the Huzurabad or in Dubaka. Politics of money was in biggest way.
So who's your enemy number one in Telangana? Is it the TRS or is it the BRS or the BJP?
BRS is our enemy in Telangana.
You know, Mr. Suresh Reddy, whenever I hear congressmen target BRS, we keep hearing about this grand alliance that is going to be formed ahead of 2024 against the BJP. Here I see there is no alliance. This is precisely what's happening at the state level. Your opponent is the Congress. KCR wants to form a grand alliance nationally. They also want to form one. It's not going to happen. Beneficiary the BJP.
Rajdeep, what's happening is the definition of national and regional parties is changing.
Definition?
Yes. And national parties are turning regional and regional parties are turning national. Regional parties are expanding. So the question of regional parties being confined to fight the national party is no more now. And I can quote examples. Today, when you asked me, can KCR form an alliance without BJP, without Congress? Yes, he can. How we can? We're proving ourselves now. It's going to happen not merely in South, but in the entire country.
Which state will you go to? I mean, it seems, you know, when KCR Gadu goes into a Maharashtra or goes into neighboring states, do you really believe that he can attract votes there?
When I say alliances, when I say expanding, it doesn't merely mean winning elections in those states. It is not just contesting elections. It is taking your ideas, taking your policies, sharing it. And to quote a small example of how this is churning out, there was recently a mammoth public meeting in Khammam a few months back. Close to 1 million people attended it. And roughly about 4 to 5 chief ministers attended, former chief ministers, political party leaders. The best spirit of federalism was exhibited there, where one chief minister, say from Kerala, appreciated the efforts of the Telangana government and said he would replicate it. The Delhi chief minister appreciated some efforts of the other state and he said he would replicate it. The Punjab chief minister said he would do it. Opposition leader from Uttar Pradesh came and said these are brilliant ideas which need to be further strengthened. So what Niti Aayog could not do, this public meeting has delivered. So this is an example of how cooperative federalism can not only bring in good prosperity to the states, but also can run the country.
Okay.
The exchange, what I'm trying to point out is the good policies, the good initiatives of each state are not being emulated because of the suppression of the BJP here. If the regional parties kind of progress, definitely the country will tend to benefit from the various ideas. Now, we're not just talking about...
Can I just stop you for a moment though? Because one of the issues that he raised, which I want you to address right away, whenever one travels to South India, and recently in Karnataka, we were told figures like 25 to 50 crores are spent per candidate per constituency of major parties. I'm told in Telangana, it will be 50 crore plus. He just mentioned money power. He mentioned it. Money was flowing like water in the by-election. Is that true? That in South India, increasingly, politics has become cash and carry. And if you don't win, you can always switch over to the winning side. Defections are also part of the game. Yes or no?
Well,
honest answer.
See, I'll answer it in two parts. Reason is, since they can't win elections, they blame that you won because of money. They never give us credit that we won because of our policies, initiatives, and the other factors. Just because you kept on losing, you say they spent money and you're winning.
Are you denying that money is spent?
And if we are, Rajiv, and if we are spending money and winning, you think they'll keep quiet? The BJP at the center? They've been hounding us day and out. So there's no question of money. Money, as a per se, is a challenge for the nation. Elections have become expensive. It is for all the political parties, election commission to sit and debate it. We'll do it the other day. But today, the allegations against us, because we are performing, you just snub us and say you have money and you're kind of winning.
Okay. Yes, John.
Rajdeep, absolutely, it's a very serious topic. See, the election expenditure, it's minimal in Kerala in the country. Minimal in Kerala. The lowest. And who raised the bar of this election expenditure? Just see what would have been the spending of BJP in Karnataka. Last Lok Sabha election, BJP would have easily spent something like 50,000 crores. And 224, I'm sure that...
No, you're throwing a number, 50,000 crores. Based on what? No. You are throwing a number at us. BJP spent 50,000 crores.
Yeah, see, you can absolutely just go and analyze these, spend they have done. And I will tell you one, even Kerala, they had 15% vote 5 years back. Now it has come down to 12%. Just see the spend of BJP in Kerala. Just see the spend of BJP in Kerala. So actually, I understand the election expenditure in South, especially in Telangana, Karnataka, etc., has gone up. And it is very minimal in Kerala because we have kept away the BJP. But because of BJP's active involvement in Kerala, it can go up. That's the reality. They are raising the bar. They are raising the bar across the nation. And one response to Manikam. Manikam, you need to be realistic. I'm just telling you that if the common interest of these political parties, non-BJP political parties, is to keep BJP away from power, forget about your petty rivalries. And please remember that, Manikam, you're a great friend of mine, your strength is in 150, 160 seats alone. 160 seats, you concentrate there. Fight the BJP. Win 50%, they're out of power. You win 50% of the 160 seats, BJP is thrown out of power. Instead of that, don't go here and there and don't send your leaders from north to Kerala, Karnataka to contest and so on.
No,
forget about it.
No, 1 minute. Are you asking the Congress to abandon Kerala also now? Come on.
No.
Here is...
No, Rajiv. No. Kerala will abandon Congress.
No. Look, you are telling them to leave Kerala, you tie up with them in Kerala. If you believe BJP is your main opponent, you tie up with them in Kerala.
I am only giving an unsolicited advice to Manikam that they should be realistic. That's all. Nothing more, nothing less.
Annamalai, somewhere in all of this, as I listen to all of the others, they seem to see you, or the BJP rather, as enemy number one in some form or the other. And they play on regional, on a more regional sentiment. Here, your leaders come to Kerala or even outside Kerala, they demonize the state through Kerala story. Then you have the manner in which the imposition of Hindi. Over the years, there's a sense Hindi, Hindu, Hindustan, and that leads to a backlash, particularly in Tamil Nadu. We saw in Karnataka also an element of Kannada pride was played by the Congress, even using Nandini versus Amul. Is part of the problem for the BJP that because you become such a dominant party in Delhi, one size no longer fits all. You're going to have to adjust to local sensitivities, whether in Tamil Nadu, whether in an Andhra, whether in a Karnataka, Kerala, you're not able to do that. You're going to have to change your strategy, bring up strong regional leaders and cater to regional sensitivities. You can't run the South from Delhi.
Sir, if you have observed, our Manikam Thakurji used a word called high command. High command, used the word called high command. I can proudly sit in my chair and call Mr. Modi ji as a Karyakarta, more than a Prime Minister. It's a Karyakarta. Just like I am a Karyakarta in BJP in Tamil Nadu, Modi ji is a Karyakarta from Gujarat sitting in Delhi as a Prime Minister. It is the high command, rule from Delhi, dismissing governments. You take a flight, by the time Rajiv Gandhi ji's flight lands, one chief minister dismissed. 1968, Hindi imposed. 1986, second education policy, Hindi imposed. 2020, for the very first time in the new education policy, we said, regional language, take a third language of your choice. I find it very funny. The whole problem, the national parties have got a bad name in Tamil Nadu simply because of Congress. It is a Congress culture. Some more people equate it to BJP also. I am sitting here. Manikam Thakurji also mentioned a statement that unemployment is rising. Just because his leader Rahul Gandhi ji is unemployed doesn't mean the youth of this country is unemployed. Simply say. And John ji mentioned a number called 50,000 crore. I just hope and pray, sir, your number 50,000 crore when you mention, it is 27 constituencies multiplied by 2,000 is 54,000 crore. If you're going by the same numbers, I really think you got to relearn your maths starting from first standard, sir. Now,
50,000 for the nation, last
nation
Lok Sabha election.
Now, looking at the whole thing, sir, if you look at BJP per se, we are very clear that leadership has to be regional, absolutely regional. That is why you see Assam Himanta Biswa Sarma. If he is growing in Congress, by now Himanta Biswa Sarma will be thrown out. If there is a Devendra Fadnavis in Maharashtra, they would have cut him to size. All the regional leadership, BJP is allowing to grow. In Tamil Nadu also BJP will grow. He mentioned about Vel Yatra. 20 years, no MLAs in Assembly, Tamil Nadu Assembly. After Vel Yatra, 4. Now Sengol, you will see 39.
No, but the fact is the one strong regional leader you had from the South was B.S. Yediyurappa, and he was marginalized before the election. The question is, do you want to run the southern states from Delhi? The point I made earlier. You're saying Hindi imposition will not happen, even though increasingly official releases are there in Delhi in Hindi, and many MPs and other parties are complaining about it. Are you very clear that whether it is in a Tamil Nadu, whether it's in a Kerala, you can't demonize Kerala through Kerala story and expect Keralites to vote for you?
One thing, Rajdeep.
Nobody is demonizing. Sir, nobody is demonizing. When there is a director, when there is a scriptwriter, there is an historical evidence. Even the celebration of Kerala story in Mumbai, there are a lot of survivors standing in the stage and they were talking about their story of what happened. It's a story.
Should the Prime Minister of the country be promoting it? Should your ministers be promoting it?
The Prime Minister, out of Prime Minister, never mentions about Kerala story, demonizing Kerala. This is a time bomb that can happen in any part of the country. It is as serious as a time bomb. Prime Minister mentioned about the concept that is happening. Can John Brittosji, who owns a television channel himself, can he say not even one incident happened inside Kerala?
Mr. Brittos?
Mr. Rajdeep, can you imagine the Prime Minister of this country being a brand ambassador of a movie like Kerala story? We should be dumped into the septic tank.
No, why should
Can
it
you
be
imagine
dumped?
that?
No, it should be watched by people. They're entitled to watch it.
Sir, we have permitted this movie to be watched and screened across the state. Did we ban it? No. We know the people will ban it on their own. And can you imagine the Home Minister, who is the custodian of national unity and integration, while campaigning in Karnataka, saying that, beware, Kerala is near you. Are we Pakistan? The most peace-loving state in the country. They should rely on the indices of the Niti Aayog. And they have depicted Kerala as Somalia.
They pick a Kerala as Somalia, the Prime Minister. And they have called Kerala the hotbed of terrorism. See, what is the statistics they have? I had asked a couple of questions in Rajya Sabha, and I asked about the love jihad. Not even a single instance of love jihad was referred to by the Home Minister. And even conversion, only 2 cases of conversion was investigated by the NIA. And what is this concoction of this? Okay, and I will tell you one thing. The only university applicable to BJP is WhatsApp University.
Rajiv, sir, you come with me. I can show the hundreds of Karyakartas butchered in Kerala. Starting from Jai Krishna Master and Kannur. We will start the history from Kannur.
Mr. Annaduddin,
till Palakkad. No.
please stay back in Kerala.
I will come along with you,
I will come with you everywhere.
Why PFI was banned? Simply because there was a state support given to PFI inside Kerala. Hundreds of BJP Karyakartas butchered in the daylight like a dog. And now he's talking about the most peace-loving state in the country as Kerala. It must be the biggest joke of the 21st century.
PFI and RSS are hand in glove. Just see the electoral scene of Karnataka. Why did the PFI's political wing contested in the coastal Karnataka? It helped BJP only. Why didn't they ban their political party?
Can I just...
Yes, they want Owaisi, they want PFI, they want everybody there. Just to split the opposition votes.
John,
that's
I'm feeling like the Speaker of the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha struggling to get a word in. But as we conclude, there's one issue that perhaps is going to be troubling to the politics of the South going ahead: delimitation. Many believe that this could set off another North-South conflict in a way. By 2026 or a little later, if delimitation comes, the number of seats of the northern Hindi heartland states could rise based on population, and the southern states could be penalized for their lower population growth rates. This, plus the fact that you have better economic indices, could lead to resentment and an alienation. How do you believe delimitation should go ahead, Manikam Tagore, or should everyone sit across a table and build a consensus before delimitation is decided upon? This could be the big hot potato going ahead.
2024 elections will decide that thing, because after the new parliament building, this delimitation has come into picture, and we can't trust Modi and Amit Shah. They can do whatever they want, and they wanted to reduce the voice of South India, means they will use whatever means in the name of delimitation itself. It is a very dangerous pattern where the performing states are going to be punished, and in the name of reservation on women's reservation, they will club that debate, and they will start, WhatsApp universities will start that. When we are speaking against delimitation, they will say we are against women. This is going to happen, and all the southern state chief ministers and member of parliaments has to rise it, and we will rise it.
You will oppose it.
We will oppose it, because we need this government, particularly when Amit Shah is there. They can do whatever they want, and they had done it in the earlier amendments also to the parliament. Parliament has become just a rubber stamp institution. Every rules has been broken, and there is no system in place, and parliament has just become only the place where Mr. Modi can speak his Man Ki Baat.
Will you also oppose it, BRS?
Yes, delimitation is a big concern for most of South India, and particularly Telangana. Reason, one is performing states are being penalized, and population control has been part of performance. And if you reduce population, you're going to lose seats. So the question of how do you delimit will be the critical issue. And like you said, we feel that a consensus should arrive. How do you arrive at a consensus? What would be the parameters? Let me give a minute. For example, now population is a criteria. Why not add geographical area too? That's one area. Second is, there is a lot of floating in the country. There are lakhs and lakhs of people from, say, Orissa, Bihar, working, living in Telangana. But only when it comes to vote, they go there. So their census says they are voters, there's a population there. So with these floating population, one, geographical area, number two, since you're performing, you're being penalized, these are definitely issues which will be part of the campaign in 2024.
It will be part of the 2024 campaign in a way. Annamalai, where do you stand on delimitation?
I don't know, sir, why my friends are in a very panicky mode. Delimitation has to happen because one MP cannot manage 16 lakh, 22 lakh kind of population. Of course, population is not going to be the only criterion for delimitation. Everybody knows That is why from 1971, we have stopped it. 100% we are sure, and BJP comes back to power in 2024. In an accommodative spirit, delimitation happened. Just to add one more point. Inside Tamil Nadu, we have about 4 distinct geographical areas. We are talking about the state. Let us talk about inside the state. I belong to the Kongu region, inside Tamil Nadu. They're like, no, when delimitation happens, we will be in trouble because our population is much less. The other parts of Tamil Nadu will get more seats. So not only at the national level, not only at the state level, even at a sub-regional level, it has to be a carefully done exercise, which BJP will 100% do.
Interesting point. John Brittus.
No, I am not against delimitation. Delimitation can happen. But if you increase the number of seats according to the population, that is going to be a serious issue for the country, unity of the country. And I will tell you one thing, I will request this present government to read closely to this delimitation and freezing of the seats. That's all.
Okay, we're reaching the end. It's been fascinating listening to all 4 articulate voices. I'm going to ask you one simple question, and I want a one-line answer. What, according to you, makes the South politics distinctive to politics of any other part? And I'm using South in a very generic sense. I know that each of you have your distinctive identities. What makes politics in the South so special? What should the world and India know about the politics of the South that they don't? Manikam, you start.
There is no hate politics allowed in South India.
No hate politics allowed in South India. Hindu-Muslim nahi chalega.
There is no hate politics.
Okay. What makes South politics distinctive according to you?
Well, the South politics is to spread the flavor. For example, like how the culinary flavor, South breakfast has become the national breakfast. It spread the flavor. Similarly, the South politics also spread the flavor of love to the North.
Okay. You know, from the midday meal scheme that MGR or Kamraj before him started, then MGR, the great welfare ideas have, of course, always come from the South and spread. Education in Karnataka. Annamalai, what makes South politics special, distinctive?
Dynasty, family, absolute corruption.
Since you spoke about dynasty, family, absolute corruption, you want to tell us where did you get those audio tapes that allegedly exposed the Tamil Nadu finance minister PTR?
I should not tell you my secret, sir. I just hold it to myself. Normally when corruption rises, the information starts coming out from the inside of that system only, sir.
So they came from inside the DMK?
Came from inside only, sir.
Okay. Final word. What makes South distinctive?
South is truly national. We don't allow hate and hatred. And I would also say that dynasty is better than hate and hatred.
Okay. Dynasty is better than hate and hatred, says John Brittus. We leave it to the educated Southern audiences to decide that, and indeed a national audience. But wonderful to have 4 articulate voices from this part of the country holding the fort. Give them a very big hand, ladies and gentlemen. It's been great listening to them. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rajdeep, and all the speakers. As we promised, it was a fiery session. Let me now invite Ms. Megha Chabra, Head of Corporate Communications, Radhiko Khaitan, to hand over a token of appreciation. Well, the previous session spoke of the politics of the South. The next session will take you to outer space, the stars, the galaxy, the planets. Whatever you see on the big screen will happen here right away. And I'd like to invite the session moderator, Mr. Raj Changappa, Group Editorial Director, Publishing India Today Group, the conversation, the space quest, and the speaker is S. Somnath, Chairman, Indian Space Research Organization.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Plus 5 seconds.
लिफ्ट ऑफ नॉर्मल
प्रज्वलन और सफलतापूर्ण उत्थापन GSLV F.
The Shah ground station is currently tracking.
वर्तमान में प्रथम चरण प्रज्वलित है. इसका कार्यकाल
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. That spacecraft that you saw was GSLV F-12. And let's give the chairman of Isro, Mr. S. Somnath, a very warm round of applause for that. Congratulations, Dr. Somnath, for that tremendous success. You've got that satellite up. But I want to look back a bit in 2021. A GSLV went up and there was a failure at that particular time. What was the problem at that time and how did you sort it out?
Once a failure occurred, we go through a very serious action of failure analysis. We collect all the data from the rocket, which is telemetered to the ground, and go through the simulations in the ground to see what could be the reason. See, Raj, you know that you can't retrieve the failed rocket, unlike the failed instruments that you may have in ground. Right. You can always probe and find out what exactly went wrong. But here we go through a process of called simulation and try to see what exactly could have gone wrong, and various
so what went wrong?
Hypotheses are put up. Okay, I'll come to that. Essentially, the issue in that mission was leakage of hydrogen. The hydrogen is there in the tank of the cryogenic stage. And at liftoff, there is a certain valve which is supposed to close. It did close, but it closed just a bit lesser than what it's supposed to be. Say a few microns, it left a gap there. And through the gap, the gas was leaking slowly, very, very slowly. But by the time it was just about to get ignited, the pressure in the tank was slightly below the threshold at which the pump will have to see a pressure. Unless that pressure is not there, the pump gets into a mode called cavitation. The cavitation is a condition in which the liquid will start boiling at the end of the pump. And once it starts boiling, it cannot pump it. Its speed increases, it doesn't deliver the liquid to the engine, and the engine stops developing. And our onboard computer found out that this engine is not developing the required thrust. So as to save the mission, it is told to cut off at that point and separate the satellite. So it did that, but unfortunately the satellite is not having the velocity, it will fall into the earth.
But congratulations for correcting that error that was there, fighting back, and that I think is the hallmark of Isro. It never lets itself down, and I think that's a big lesson that you learned in terms of this thing. And of course, space is unforgiving. Even out of 99.9, you could get it right, but even that 0.1 could destroy whatever mission you had.
That's the challenge, and that's the beauty. So we enjoy it only because it is very risky business.
And while you were there, this satellite, I gather the NAV S1 or whatever the designation you've given it, is up in orbit and working at the moment, or is approaching its geostationary
We went through a process called raising the perigee to an apogee size. It was injected to an elliptical orbit of 170 kilometer by 40,000 kilometer. It has to emit 36,000 kilometers circular, and it also has to go to a precise location in its orbit, and also its inclination to the equator.
So the news is everything is normal on that.
Now we did all that processes. The final orbital correction is completed. It's already in the equatorial orbit, but it has to drift to reach the right place. That will happen in the next few weeks.
And you're confident that will happen?
Yes.
Coming to the satellite itself, now India has built a GPS system. This is one of the, or maybe the fifth satellite that will go and sit up there and transmit. Why did we need a GPS system like that? We could have used the other GPS systems that America and others have. Why
So we have been using GPS of the US. Let us understand, Raj, that the GPS is a US installation. It's a US creation. It was originally created for the strategic need of
The GPS, by the way, is all the Google stuff that you use in
Yeah.
your car. And suddenly India has one. So just to
Yes, of
explain, it's not a
course.
very
Yeah,
technical
it's
thing.
a global constellation. It's
Right.
there everywhere. You can see it. You can get the data in anything. But it was originally a military system. And realizing the commercial potential and the public utility, it was transferred to the civilian domain. But still, they have the civilian segment and the military segment, which the military segment, none of you are able to access. Only their military installations and equipments can access that code, which is secured. Now, talk about the GPS. It gives you certain accuracy and availability. There are 2 points. One is called accuracy and second is availability. And availability in the control of the people who are actually providing it. So that means if they don't want to give GPS service at this location, it is possible for them to switch off or make it inferior, that your accuracies will drop to hundreds of meters. Now think of a situation that if you put GPS into any of our systems where we are doing vehicle tracking, railway monitoring, Aadhaar installations, or ship tracking, and also military equipments and devices, and the GPS is inferior at that point, in a situation which is of conflict situation, and somebody decided that it has to be inferior, then we are taken for granted. It cannot be. And we realize that it cannot be, and we need to have our own systems in case that you have a need to protect our installations and systems. And that's why we thought of a concept called IRNSS, which was later named as NAVIC. And this is not a global system like GPS. GPS is created as a global system because US needs it. They were a global military power. We are not. So we looked at it how a GPS system or equivalent can be made for India and its neighborhood, which will serve the purpose which I mentioned, which is basically a strategic purpose. So we defined a different architecture, which is not of GPS nature, which is a GPS goes in a MEO orbit where we are stationary. The satellites are stationary there and looking at only India. This gives us a distinct advantage. It is much more accurate. It gives you less than 3 meter accuracy when all the 7 satellites are there, which is not GPS doesn't give.
So in effect, these set of satellites makes India self-sufficient.
Sure, yeah, it's not only self-sufficient, that you are the decider of your destiny. And what
secure.
you want to do with your satellites, you can decide.
Secure, strategic one. But let's come to a more, I think this is the thing that's very popular. Chandrayaan is about to go up, and this is Chandrayaan 3. Tell us about this mission, our mission to the moon, and what will it do? What's it different from Chandrayaan 2? And when is it going up?
Yeah, essentially, Chandrayaan 3 is similar to Chandrayaan 2 in terms of its architecture, the scientific objective, the mission, everything is same. But what we did is that we had a failure in landing safely at the required velocity in the lander, but orbiter is still there. It is working beautifully to give the scientific instruments, are doing the measurements, and we are getting enough of data. But the final target of landing softly on the moon could not be achieved. So we took pains to understand why it went wrong, and we are very clear in the similar lines as I mentioned about the GSLV. We did a failure analysis. We found out through simulations what could have gone wrong. Again, no message came from there. I am wrong here or bad here, but we could synthesize it and understand over a period of time.
And can you tell us what was the problem? Simply, we don't want too much of detail. We're not a technical thing.
Yeah, of course. I will tell you, it's an error. There was an error sitting in the software.
Sorry?
An error sitting in the software.
Okay.
But the error sitting in software will always will not be triggered because there are conditions that will drive you to that error. Those who are in software business will know that always software even if an error is there in the software, it may not be triggering, causing a mission failure. But there are some of the situations or some of the conditions prior to that drove the system to that software error. And once the software error occurred, the satellite lost its control. It couldn't realize that it is at this height and this crash landed.
It was not anything to do with the mechanical processes of the lander that was there or any of that?
No, nothing to do with the mechanical element of it. But of course, there are some mechanical reasons behind the initial conditions which caused the later problem. So of course, that requires a lot of complex explanation, of course.
Sure. No, I mean, just the gist of it, you have been able to overcome it. You're confident. Now, this is going up when? In July?
No, we are trying to put the launch in a window which starts on 12th of June. It will be a very short window because we need to launch it only at the right time when the moon, sun, and the earth locations are appropriate for us to minimize energy required. So the date will be announced soon.
We're also quite excited about the fact that finally we are going to put India, our own mission in space, a man mission,
Yeah,
a man mission in
yeah,
space.
Yeah.
Now, when is that going to happen? Everyone's asking, it's Gaganyaan. Where have we reached? What is the progress? And when can we see finally our indigenous effort to put
See, we
our own
want
man
to
in
make
space?
sure when that
Or
launch
women
happens.
in space, sorry.
Yeah,
I should
human
be
in
gender
space.
sensitive. Women in space as well.
Okay.
Yes.
So you always say human in space.
Human
rather.
in space,
Yeah.
okay.
So, so when it happens, it must be the one in which we are very absolutely confident about its success. We have to reach that state. Of course, we know we have rockets which are flying safely. And all of you know, Raj, there can be anything that can go wrong in a rocket. And if it really goes wrong, we need to save the crew. So crew escape system must be perfected. So the first goal is to perfect the crew escape system, and we are working on it. And it will take a few missions. Right now, we have to have at least 4 missions to demonstrate the crew escape system will work when it demanded at critical junctures in the mission. Second point is that we need to do unmanned missions, robotic missions initially to prove the end-to-end capability of the design, development, communication, networking, and bringing it back, all are working properly. And that has to be repeated at least 2 times, maybe more. We'll have to see. And all of this is success-based idea. No, if anything goes wrong here, it requires correction and further launches. So I'm not putting the date for the launch of the final human mission. It's not important at this moment. Our focus is to do what is needed to reach that point. And when it reaches the point, all of you will tell, why don't you do the human mission now? Huh? More than Isro, the nation will tell us, you are ready for it, you do it.
Right.
So it is my responsibility to showcase to the nation, the scientists, that we are reaching that state. Right. Otherwise, all of you will criticize me. If I take a plunge into it and cause a hardship to anybody who actually flies on the vehicle, you won't pardon me. Right. And the nation won't pardon you. And it's very important for us to do very carefully. Unless you do that carefully, this will not be sustained in India.
Human lives involved.
You think of a situation that there is the first mission, there is a failure and human life is lost. Do you think that we will repeat it? It will be extremely difficult for all of us to reach a situation that, yes, we will try once again. Not possible. So we have to have absolute clarity on either we go to orbit, or if you face a mission failure or any other problem, we save the crew. This has to be done. So that is the essence of the whole work.
So essentially what you're doing now is there is a crew safety system, which means if there is a failure after takeoff, the crew can be ejected out, and that's what you're going to test right now.
Precisely,
that's one.
yes. Yeah.
That's the one. The second thing that you're saying next year is you'll have a crew spacecraft, but there will be nobody inside it. Correct. It'll orbit so that you'll know whether it is safe. Have you also built the environment, because you need the oxygen and you have to make it human compatible? Has that also technology been achieved?
Yeah, it's a difficult technology. Only very few nations have really. It's available only in 3 nations today. And we approached them for help in developing it. But the help is not that forthcoming. I think you must understand that it is not easy to get those helps. Some of them offered it, but they were telling they will take few years to develop it and at exorbitant cost. And after analyzing the merit of these offers, we decided that we are not going to depend on them. We are going to develop it on our own. And work has started. And we have reached a certain condition which we are now integrated them and started testing it. It's a great news. But again, it's a first prototype that we have just made.
So we are building our own
using our own knowledge, our own skills in our industry.
Wow.
Yes.
Yes, let's give them this thing. So that technology is very critical. They don't like to part with it. Okay. Okay, and so where have we reached in that? We've now...
So we will be putting some part of it in our first unmanned mission. We will test whether the oxygen supply, the air conditioning, the water supply and removal of the humidity, the waste disposal, and oxygen, cleanliness of the air. So there are so many fire protection. All of these are built into it. I think we are trying to see that with unmanned mission it works well.
Just a ABC question. What about the spacesuit? Do we will have our own spacesuit with the color and everything?
We have our own spacesuit. It is under development. We made at least 5 different prototypes from, again, using the industrial system support available in India. But for the first mission, we purchased some spacesuits and kept in the shelf for guarantee of our crew. And we will take a decision whether to use it or not at the appropriate time.
What about Indian food? Are you going to serve Indian food?
Of course, only Indian food. And there are enough of industries, scientific research labs in India who is working on aerospace food, and they have developed quite a lot of food. And we have brought in specialists from NASA.
What will you get? Idli sambar, or what will you get?
No, they won't be able to eat idli and sambar in their short duration mission. But when they are in long duration mission, they will be able to eat chicken and various other things. That's no issue for them.
And all the good masalas you can be put.
All of them, yes. But for short missions, it will be in a different form. They will be in a pelletized tube and similar forms because they won't be in a position to move and prepare it. So the short duration missions like 1 day to 1 week missions, they will have one type of food. Whereas for long duration mission, they need to take it out of the short sleeve environment. The entire food will be of similar nature that as we eat.
And what about the astronauts that are going, or what do we call some Gagannauts, as we call them here? How many have been selected, shortlisted, and are there women in that? And how many crew will actually go up finally?
See, the astronaut pool is something that we need to develop over a period of time. So what we did is we have only one astronaut in India, Rakesh Sharma. Of course, he has gone in a Russian vehicle, and we have huge amount of exposure, experience from him shared with us. And he's with us while we are selecting, training the people. The only place I can look for astronaut is Indian Air Force. And they are the pilots who have the ability to withstand those type of environment. And we have picked four such pilots who are into the fighter plane. They were testing pilots, and they have joined us as astronaut trainees. And they have gone through the entire training program in other countries. They have come back. We are setting up the training facilities, and they are going through coursework, simulation training, etc. Now they are student trainees of astronauts, and they will graduate themselves, and using their exposure to whatever training they have done, we are designing and developing the module in which they sit. So it's actually designing a car in which a driver is already experienced with, and his experience is used in designing the car. It's something like that, yeah.
And is there any female in that thing? Will we see India's
See,
first...
right now we don't have even fighter pilots.
Right.
Women are not there. So
Right.
naturally, when I look for them, they are not available at this moment. I'm sure they will come at maybe a little later when we expand the pool.
Now, just a comparative thing. We have seen, various private companies going up to space. You had Bezos's company, Jeff Bezos. You had our Elon Musk. They're putting up people into space. This thing. What is why is Isro taking so long? If these chaps can come 10 years, 15 years, and then put someone up in space, and here we've had a space program that is almost contiguous now, 50 years. Why hasn't it happened more quickly in
I
India?
think you need to understand the background on which that has really been developed in US. When the US was sending space shuttle mission, they faced two very, very critical failures, and they had to shelve space shuttle. And when they stopped space shuttle launches, where it was capable of sending human space mission, America had no launch vehicle capable of taking human beings to space. And they were sending the human beings in a Russian craft for many years later. So for next 7 to 8 years, they had no rocket taking human beings to space. And they took a challenge in US when they shut down space shuttle. They funded heavily the private companies like Boeing, the SpaceX, etc., and multiple companies, government funded money to create this capability. It is not a private company just like that doing a human spaceflight mission. The entire NASA experience is behind them. And using the already developed systems, knowledge, and skills of the NASA, the private companies could develop with huge funding from the government. And now, SpaceX itself took 11 years to develop the capability. Let us not forget the path. Their rocket, the initial rockets were failing one after another. And he was bankrupt, Just forget about the human launch, even the first taking of the rocket and landing, he couldn't achieve over a period of time. But it takes persistent effort and money and investment. And of course, you need a good leadership, of course, to create this capability. There is only one example, SpaceX. Of course, Bezos is developing rocket. It has not still been an operational rocket for launching satellites. He has developed capability. But Elon Musk is definitely an inspiration for all of us to see how a private entrepreneur is able to create a booming business in space. And it's an eye-opener for all the people in the world.
What about what developments that are happening in China? We see that China has close to 60 space missions every year. They have now announced that they would put their own human in the moon pretty quickly by 2030. How is that they're able to do so much and our ambitions are much lower? What's the reason behind that?
See, here again, I need to understand the geopolitics of space. It doesn't go just like the technology alone. See, when the Russians were collapsing and the nation was disintegrating and the Ukrainian space domain, which was essentially the technology support for the Russians, was not having any possibility of getting into space because they became a landlocked country. The entire space technology in Ukraine was for sale. Okay, and it was the Chinese who took advantage of the situation, and they moved much of the people, knowledge, skill in Ukraine and also partially in Russia to China. And whatever they developed at that point in time was based on this core knowledge available in those parts of the countries. Of course, they may agree, they may not disagree, but that's what we know about it. But then I can't underplay what they did because they had a huge support from the government. There is a huge investment. At least 10 times the people of space sector working in India are working in space sector. And they wanted it as a target to demonstrate their national superiority. It is not for science alone, for technology alone. I don't see there is a huge amount of business happening in China on account of space missions and human space activity. But they want to showcase that they are a superpower. Of course, it is their policy and decision that they need to do. But as scientists and engineers, we are excited to see even China doing wonderful things like the human space missions, their plan to go to moon, etc., challenging the supremacy of the US and other allies. So it is their political decision to do such a thing. But I will not compare that they are doing so fantastic and so much, why we are not doing. That question doesn't arise. It comes out of the national need. What exactly you want to do with the money and resources that you have at this moment? And I am very sure that we are very clear about it.
Now, one of the things we did, and we've got about 6 minutes left, is that we changed our space policy. Isro till now, Indian Space Research Organization till now, was the monopoly over all space activity, whether building rockets, sending out satellites, having your stations that are there to launch them. The government, the Modi government has changed that dramatically and allowed private players to come in. How significant is that move? Can we now see more Bezos, Elon Musk that India has? Do we have the capability, or are they doing only low-lying technology that's there?
See, the narratives of the Elon Musk and Bezos is not applicable to India. I think let us understand, again, I mentioned that the ecosystem in the US at that threshold of changeover from NASA more dominated to private was at a different time. They were already having private people, the Titan, the Delta, they were all in private company-owned rockets. In America, they were launching rockets by private companies, fully built, designed, because they are huge techno companies who are into the defense sector and they know how to build missiles. All the missiles of the Americans are not built by the government. They are built by the private companies, even today. And they started much before government started doing it. Now think of the Indian situation in which when there was no space activity in India, government invested to create ISRO. And ISRO became responsible to create the capability in this country. And we brought in industries, supplier chain into our midst. And we have at least 500 such companies today doing space-related activity, high-end technical activity today. Just because ISRO did this, today we have an ecosystem around available in this country capable of doing aerospace-related work and related activities. It is not a small task. Last 60 years we did that. But now the challenge is they have to upgrade themselves to the people like Boeing. They must be having capability to have end-to-end design capability. They must be able to do business. They must be able to provide solutions for the space sector, building satellites, building rockets if they want, building applications without ISRO support or even with ISRO's mentoring. How to bring that change? This is a question. Unless we do that change, the business side will not expand. We need investment in this. We need more jobs to be created. Our industry should be capable of doing it. And we have reached an inflection point at this time. Unless we do the opening of the space sector, it will continue in this mode with a very low scale of operation. So we see now the space sector is global. There is a business opportunity outside. We can build and export satellites. We can build and export applications. And we can bring in a reasonable amount of predicted revenue to this model. So that's why the space sector is opening.
And it will ISRO, because I saw recently there was a Hyderabad startup, Skyroot, that sent up its first launcher. You have a whole range of people, both in the satellite. Do you think that when it comes finally in the coming years, all your launches will start moving towards private sector? You would actually, all the needs that you all are meeting of India's private sector will now be dominated by private sector launchers and satellites?
See, I won't simply use the word private sector, launches will move to private sector. There is nothing like that approach. We are encouraging private investment in space. So it will include applications, which is the 85% of the space business is in application delivery of services, which includes communication services, remote sensing services, strategic services. I believe that biggest of the business will be in that sector. Now comes building capability in terms of satellites, ground station, receiving equipment, communication equipments, which is not even there in this country. You have to bring those industries to build receiving stations, communicate network, equipments, etc., which is again 30-40% of the overall business. Now look at the satellite building. It is hardly 15% of the overall economic scale of economy, and rockets are hardly less than 10% of the overall size of the market of the space. So the niche markets are very difficult to reach. Building rockets and launching in private is not easy because the 2-3 failures will kill a company. So what we do is do a very calibrated approach. ISRO will support these private players who are coming into rockets, handhold them, try to develop that capability, and look at what innovative things they are bringing in, not routine. So we are allowing them to take on whatever knowledge we have, give help from higher. Similar thing for satellites. But in the application domain, we don't have to do that. There is already an innovative ecosystem available, and we only have to allow them to do without government control.
Well, we're almost out of time, but let's ask you about our mission to the sun, Aditya. When is that going up? That sounds very exciting.
Yeah, that's going to go in August.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we have just prepared the satellites, getting
Lovely.
ready.
Right.
And maybe that's a window available for going to Moon again for all
And what will
launches.
we do? What aspect? How close will we
See,
get to the sun?
Moon, its orbit. The location where the satellite will be 4 times the distance of Moon from
Wow.
Earth. So there is a point called L1. It's a Lagrangian point L1. It's a field where the gravity between Sun and Earth will neutralize. And if you send something there, it will stay around that point. Okay, so we will take the satellite there. You leave it there. It will simply move around a fictitious point and will continuously look at Sun.
For how many years?
As long as the satellite lives.
That's about 8-9 years, or
no, our designs are for 5 years.
Okay.
But
And what will it do? What will it stare at?
What it does is, see, it will look at the sun and look at the corona. And
Right.
corona has very lot of activities in which that it ejects coronal mass. Recently, you would have heard there is a solar storm hit the Australians and New Zealand area and disrupt the entire communication networks. We have weather, space weather, which is very important. So we put instruments to look at sun, predict such coronal mass ejections, do remote sensing of the sun, and also when the particles are coming, much before it reaches Earth, we will be able to give warning to us. This is only the part of the service part of it, but there is a huge amount of scientific interest in understanding the processes that are happening in sun.
And is this the farthest in space that this thing, or Mangalyaan was further than this?
Mangalyaan was farther away, no? Of
Okay.
course, it is, we are just around the moon only.
And
Yeah.
finally, since we have hit zero, what is your favorite moment? You've been a rocket specialist. What is your, your moment that when you look back, you say, that was something I did. You've been 40 years in space, or 38 years in space.
I am 38 years plus.
Yeah.
Okay, see, I was a project director of a rocket. I was responsible to design and develop the LVM-3, which is going to be the human
That's the heavy lift vehicle.
Heavy lift vehicle, which
Just to explain that earlier we had capacities of 2-ton satellites.
Now we have
4-ton
4-ton
satellites.
plus.
Now we have 4 tons to 8 tons. We can go up to if you want to. Yeah.
So this rocket was being developed, and I joined the team. And when it was launched, the very first time, I was a mission director. See, the joy that we get when we actually sketched this rocket to write a project report, maybe 10 years back. I was making a drawing on an A4 sheet of paper or engineering drawing, an idea to put up a project report, doing its basic design at some point in time in my life. And later, 10 years later, you see the rocket standing, ready to get launched, massive 600-ton, manufactured, designed, and developed by Indians, mine by team. And what a joy that you see looking at it taking off. No? It's like a mother creating a baby and then seeing it growing and taking places, going places. No, you feel similar enjoyment in life. I think nothing can match that.
Dr. Somnath, you are a real hero of India. Congratulations, and to all your scientists and your team. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a very warm round of applause for this. Thank you so much.
Check. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Raj Shangappa and Mr. Somnath. I'd like to invite Mr. Sunil P. Nayak of Sham Steel to hand over a token of appreciation to the guest. A billion eyes in the next few years on all the mission that ISRO would take up, including the Gaganyaan. All the very best, sir.
Of your grit and versus nature. No GPS. Danger lurking every turn. Season 22 coming soon.
We've been watching this for 21 seasons.
Has more adrenaline.
तुम्हारा कितना लीड बचा है?
Make up for lost time. Back up for Kerala.
Yeah. Just hold on. Yeah. Sure.
Really, Dad? I'm not 5 anymore.
You know she's off to college next year, right?
You gotta go zigzag deep right. Pack your bag and get your swag. Jack, get away. You gotta go. You gotta go. You gotta go far away.
Make up for lost time. Back up for Kerala.
Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, to the India Today South Conclave 2023. And I would invite my special guests at this moment, Venu Rajamoni and Dr. Osaf Saeed, to join us on what is an intriguing topic for debate because it concerns a number of people in this part of the country. Venu, yeah. Dr. Saeed, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the India Today Conclave South 23. We're here in Kerala, and one of the great Kerala stories is the story of the remittance economy and how it transformed this state and indeed has increasingly transformed large parts of the country, but particularly Kerala and southern India. But what is the way forward? Has Kerala and indeed southern India exhausted its potential, particularly when it comes to Gulf and West Asia? What are the new bridges that can be built? New bridges to the Gulf is our topic of discussion. I'm joined by Dr. Osaf Saeed. He's Secretary for the Government of India, looking at overseas Indian affairs besides visas, passports, and a number of issues, particularly connected with the Gulf and the West Asian region. And with him is Venu Rajamoni, Officer on Special Duty External Cooperation, Government of Kerala, works very closely with Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan's office and has been a distinguished foreign service officer himself over the years. So thank you both very much for being here. Dr. Saeed, let's start with you because you mentioned before the discussion to me something that I'm going to use as a trigger point. That over the last several years, 8.5 million Indians today live and reside in the Gulf, holding Indian passports, work in that area. But maybe, just maybe, we've reached exhaustion point and need to look for new areas of employability. How do you see the Gulf-India relationship when it comes to Indians reaching out to find employment in the Gulf? Have we reached exhaustion point, saturation point?
Thank you, Rajay, for asking this question. You know, India has one of the world's largest diaspora in the world. We have about 32 million people living abroad. But out of that, 13.45 are non-resident Indians. And out of that 13.45, we have around 8.5 to 9 million living in the Gulf countries. So it's a huge number. And in most of these countries, the Indians are the largest expatriate group. So when we talk about UAE, for instance, we have 3.5 million, Saudi 2.5, Kuwait 1 million. So in all these places, one thing is very common is that the local authorities, the local government speak very highly of Indians. But at the same time, now the question which you asked is, have we reached the peak? Have we reached the maximum? Now, what we find is that the Gulf is becoming increasingly competitive. We have competition from our neighbors. We have competition from Southeast Asian countries like Philippines and Thailand. So what is first happening is the Gulf countries becoming more choosy in terms of those who are coming in. That means they should be fully skilled. So one pressure on the Indian side, both the state governments as well as the federal government, is to kind of ensure that whoever goes out is fully skilled. So this is one aspect. Second, at the same time, start looking at other opportunities in other regions. So what we have started doing recently is that we have began negotiating what are known as MMPAs, Migration and Mobility Partnership Agreements. So as we speak, we have such agreements with UK, we have agreements under discussion with Italy, Denmark, Austria, Australia. So these are new areas. With Japan, we have something called Specialized Skilled Workers Agreement, which is basically concentrating on healthcare, where Kerala is very strong, and also in agriculture, where North India is very strong. So these are new areas and new countries where we are looking at, so that, on the one hand, these countries are looking at legal migration, and on the other hand, we are also looking at, safer avenues and newer avenues.
At the same time, we are strengthening our ties with the Gulf itself. There's talk of a free trade agreement in the near future with the United Arab Emirates and possibly with across the Gulf Cooperation Council. Is that going to happen? So, because the Prime Minister Modi has invested a lot of his personal equity in building a stronger relationship with the leadership in the UAE in particular, and indeed across the Gulf.
Yes, Rajdeep, I think Gulf as a whole region, the GCC, if you talk, and you've extended to West Asia, this entire region is of extreme importance to us. I would say there are 5 or 6 major pillars for us in this. So one is trade and commerce. Second is investments. Third is energy security. Fourth, food security. And fifth is, our maritime security and defense. And I already mentioned about the diaspora, the 6 pillars. So when you talk about the first 2 pillars, trade and investments, the importance comes from the SEPA, which is the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which we have already concluded with UAE. And this was concluded in a record 88 days time. And it actually covers 95% of our tariff lines, which would go at 0 duty. So Indian exports are bound to increase dramatically. We have already seen in the last financial year, there is a growth of 20%. It has reached about 80 billion plus, and we are aiming at 100 billion only with UAE. Cumulatively with GCC, we have reached a total trade target of $185 billion. So I think this is there. But we want to expand this FTA with the GCC as an organization. So we have started negotiating with GCC. There is now an understanding between the 2 sides that these are very important negotiations. The terms of reference have been exchanged. And if things go well, within a matter of few months or so, we should have the discussions rolling with all the GCC countries.
So you're saying that in the next few months, we will have discussions on a free trade agreement, an FTA, with all the GCC countries, which could become reality maybe next year, this time when we have our next South Conclave. Am I right?
That's quite possible.
Okay, good. Venu Rajamoni, you're in a very interesting position, because it's not often that a chief minister asks for someone from the foreign affairs retired officer to come and help in the external dimensions of the relationship. It's unique. Give us a sense of Kerala has, what is Kerala doing in terms of reaching out, because it's got a large diaspora. Is that the primary target, or is it building relations between Thiruvananthapuram and other overseas governments?
Thank you for this question, Rajdeep. I would say that the overseas governments as well as diaspora are part of the larger mandate with which I have been given this appointment. And your initial question and our discussion on the Gulf actually frames it well. Yes, remittances are an extremely important part of Kerala economy, a big contribution that people from Kerala make for the economy as they go out and work. But we should not forget that the Gulf is extremely proximate to Kerala. It is only 3 hours distance, the same time which it takes to go to Delhi. The Gulf, the Arabs have been coming to Kerala for centuries. We have a centuries-old trading, cultural, and people-to-people relationship. Kerala was the first place Islam came through trade, not through the sword. And from Kerala, people have been going to the Gulf for Hajj from the time Islam came. So there is in the north of Kerala, there is a Mapilla community, which are children of Arabs married to local people. So there's a huge history to this relationship. And even today, the Gulf Arabs have a very positive view of the people of Kerala, just as they have of people of India. If you take the total population of the Gulf, roughly about 50% would be from Kerala, and they are respected and they are valued. So remittances is what happens now. It is the mainstay of our relationship today. But if we look at the future, as migration trends change, the challenge for us is to convert it into trade and investment. The challenge for us is to continue to develop close political relationship, not only at the central government level, but also at the state government level, whereby our state government leaders are equally friendly and familiar with the Arab leaders of the Gulf, and vice versa. they constantly come here, they visit here. One of the disappointments so far is that the largest number of tourists who come to Kerala, which is known as God's own country, a premier tourism destination, come from UK and France, not from the Gulf. So we must bring more tourists here. This hotel, this iconic property here in Kovalam, is owned by an NRI, a Malayali who lives in Bahrain, Dr. Ravi Pillai. Mr. Yusuf Ali in UAE is well known for his contributions to Kerala. NRIs from Kerala who live in the Gulf, who have become big businessmen, have made major contributions to Kerala over the years. But we still don't have major flagship Arab investments. We have the DP World, which has a transshipment terminal in Cochin, but beyond that, there isn't any signature property here in Kerala. So we have a lot of work to do in wooing mainstream Arab investments into Kerala, and that's where we would like to work very closely with the central government and in particular with the Ministry of External Affairs.
So, because I know that the Chief Minister is traveling next month to the US, to Cuba, and the opposition says all of these are junkets. The opposition accuses the Chief Minister of carrying on his own personal private agenda. How valid is the criticism that why do you need to do these overseas trips? Or do you believe that the nature of diplomacy has changed, that you just don't focus on Delhi, but increasingly chief ministers and state capitals also matter?
Absolutely. In modern day diplomacy parlance, there is a term called para-diplomacy, which is for sub-sovereigns to interact with each other. If you look at the large federal countries of the world, the United States, Canada, Australia, many of their provinces have opened offices in India and are interacting with our state governments across the board. So within India, in the Indian context, traditionally the central government was very conservative and did not encourage states to interact with foreign countries. But the man who made a big difference in that was Prime Minister Modi himself, who had his experience as Chief Minister of Gujarat, who traveled widely, who tried to bring investments into Gujarat, who tried to promote trade. Under Prime Minister Modi's instructions, Ministry of External Affairs today has a states division, which encourages contacts, which supports states in establishing contacts with foreign countries. So what happens when people criticize, I think at the state level, they don't have the national perspective. If every foreign trip was to be a junket, then MEA would have to be wound up. How many foreign trips has the Prime Minister Modi gone on, other ministers go? So that kind of scrutiny in Kerala, people they don't see the larger perspective. Ultimately, things in foreign relations happen only slowly. You cannot have instant results. No chief minister goes and brings back a bag of money or big investment projects. It has to be built up over a period of time, for which visits are important.
You mentioned about the need to reach out, get investments. We started off by triggering it off with remittance economy and whether it's saturation point. But Venu, according to reports, more than 1.7 million Keralites returned to the state, mainly from West Asia due to a job loss between 2020 and 21. We've also seen similar figures from people coming back to Telangana, coming back to Hyderabad, Dr. Saeed's home city. Is that a concern? How post-pandemic, do you see the equations having changed in any manner between those who reside in the Gulf and states like Kerala or indeed Telangana?
Well, I think there is an open debate. Honestly, migration patterns are predominantly spontaneous. They're not sponsored by a government or by any agency. COVID certainly was a factor, but a lot of the people who came back are also going back. And in Gulf, the big question is Saudi Arabia is only starting to open up. And it's a huge economy with enormous opportunities. When Saudi Arabia really opens up, there will be many more opportunities for both Indians to go there and work, as well as for business to find opportunities there. At the same time,
yeah, go ahead.
If I may add on what Venu is saying, I think post-pandemic, now the flight restrictions have been removed. A lot of people who have come back are now going. We are seeing this, and it is evident in many ways. Since I also look after the passport offices and the thing, we have seen that last year we had more than 1 crore passports issued. So which is a huge demand, and we are seeing people going to all the countries in the Gulf, and particularly in the context of Saudi Arabia as part of the Vision 2030. There is a huge expansion. New cities are coming up. NEOM, as you would have heard, there is the largest floating city on the planet, which is coming up there, the City of Line. So all these would lead to opportunities for our individuals and as well as companies in these things. And also with rapprochement between Saudi and Iran and many other files closing in the Middle East, you will find areas like Yemen open up for reconstruction and many other areas. So I think there are opportunities. I would personally feel that many Indians would go in these countries.
It's interesting you mentioned Saudi Arabia there more than once. You've been an ambassador to that part of the world. And I was intrigued that I saw Saudi Arabia Tourism, one of the prime sponsors of the IPL this time. Clearly, therefore, Saudi Arabia opening its doors to India. How much of this is to curtail the influence that in the past China and Pakistan have wielded over some of these countries? In fact, Saudi Arabia was seen almost as the last frontier in a way. Do you see that a dramatic change taking place in relations, not just with the UAE, but Saudi Arabia as well?
Yes, Rajdeep, I think it is very evident that our relationship with all the Gulf countries is very strong and perhaps at the highest plane. With 3 countries in the Gulf, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Oman, we have strategic partnership. Saudi Arabia regards India as a very important key player, for its overall foreign policy and for investments. If you recollect, when Crown Prince had come in 2019, they made an announcement of $100 billion of investments to come in. Likewise, UAE has said 75 billion. So they are looking at that. And then, as you just mentioned about cricket, Saudi Arabia is extremely keen to kind of promote cricket in a big way. They want to make Saudi Arabia the destination for the richest cricket league, in that. So maybe down the line, you will find all IPL matches, perhaps, or other matches go there. You are correct that Saudi Aramco and Saudi Tourism Board are main sponsors. And you will also be surprised that Saudi Tourism Board has opened up 3 offices in India, Delhi, Bombay, and Calcutta, which means that they are looking at India also for, normal tourists, not just the Hajj and Umrah tourists. So they are going to open up, for wedding destinations. They are encouraging Bollywood for more film shootings. In fact, they are incentivizing this by giving about 40% subsidy to film industry to come and do the shootings there. So I would feel there will be great momentum in all these areas: the sports, culture, Bollywood, and so on.
So you're telling me there will be a potential IPL kind tournament in Saudi Arabia in the next few years?
Very much possible.
Wow.
Rajdeep, if I can
Yes.
add to this, you asked about China and Pakistan in the Gulf. Over the last decade or 2 decades, the size of the Indian population has steadily grown, while the number of Pakistanis there has come down. From a situation of equal Indians and equal Pakistanis, Indians are much more. Indian presence is much more valued than Pakistani today in all these Gulf countries. And while China is active diplomatically, China can never be a match for India in the people-to-people connection that we have with the Arabs, in our cultural similarities, and in our history of contacts.
Is that in a way, therefore, Venu, the use of soft power? Increasingly, what you're suggesting across the Gulf, particularly a state like Kerala, or indeed a large part of this world, given the strong cultural, historical ties we've had, you see soft power of India competing with China's financial power in reaching out to the Gulf and West Asia?
Absolutely. I think we have a distinct advantage over everyone else. We already have our first foot in there. We have respect. We have connections. But it is a gold mine. We still haven't utilized it fully. We must be much more proactive in building linkages with the leadership, with Arab mainstream businessmen, in bringing them here, in taking our people there, not just for the lower end of the spectrum jobs, but as professionals, as partners. So there is endless opportunity still in the Gulf, even as one doesn't neglect the other countries. In fact, one of the biggest debates in Kerala today is why our young undergraduates are going to various countries in the world to learn various subjects. Colleges, general arts and science colleges are shutting down programs in Kerala because there are no students there here. Everybody wants to go abroad. In Ukraine, when the crisis took place, more than 50% of the medical students there were from Kerala.
50% of the medical students in Ukraine were from Kerala.
Absolutely. And they're going to Tajikistan, they're going to Kyrgyzstan, they're going to China, they're going to Russia. So there is something wrong there which needs to be fixed. But yet the fact that our people continue to explore new destinations, are adventurous, are adaptable, are willing to go and face difficult circumstances to make a future for themselves and to bring that back to Kerala, either through a remittance or in some other manner. All these are positive things which should be encouraged and built upon by government, central and state.
Rajdeep, I want to say, add on to this, on the soft power you mentioned. See, in my previous capacity as ambassador there, we had a very unique agreement which was signed by Saudi Arabia. And mind you, this was the first by any Islamic country. This agreement, MOU, was for promotion of yoga in Saudi Arabia. And you know, yoga is becoming extremely popular. So you would, normally one would think that a conservative country would not promote yoga. So yoga has become extremely popular. And then there is now urge to understand different elements, different dimensions of Indian culture throughout the Gulf. You have seen that new temples have come up, in UAE, and a huge temple, Swaminarayan temple, is coming in Bahrain. Likewise, I think we are the interfaith dialogues which are taking place now in these countries, and we had one such dialogue last year in Riyadh, where they had actually gone ahead and invited several Hindu, Jain, and other scholars from all over the world. So you see the attitudes are changing, perceptions are changing. There is now tendency to know more about other cultures, more about other religions, so this is what is making it different.
In a way, are you saying that the relationship is now more of equals? Because for the longest time, we were, and we still are to a large extent, dependent on oil and gas from West Asia, from the Gulf region. You seem to be suggesting that over time, the relationship is becoming much more of equals. India's skilled labor going there, not just unskilled labor, skilled labor going there, mega projects, investments likely to come in. The Gulf countries are likely to invest in Kashmir. They're talking about a big investment project in Kashmir as well. Are we saying that the relationship, therefore, between these West Asian countries and India is being redefined and becoming much more of equals rather than one-sided?
Yes, definitely, Rajdeep. Because when we talk about investments, it's actually two-way investments now. Several Indian companies are actually now investing in all these countries. We have an investment of about 15 billion, as against their investments of about 25 or 21 billion. So I think it is increasing. We have almost 2.5 billion investments in Saudi Arabia. Very recently, 4 companies, Indian companies in the field of green energy, particularly green hydrogen, have signed MOUs to the tune of $18 billion to invest in Egypt. So things are different. Saudis and as well as other countries are looking to go beyond the transactional relationship of only as a buyer-seller as far as the oil is concerned. Many of them are investing in strategic partnership in the hydrocarbon sector, strategic reserves, and so on and so forth. So I think there is definitely a distinct shift, and this shift is very evident in the last few years, I would say.
What I find interesting, Venu Rajamani, is that you've got a left government here with Pinarayi Vijayan, and you've got a BJP government at the center with Narendra Modi. And what you're suggesting is that there is a growing convergence in terms of interest. Even the left is encouraging possibly foreign direct investment much more than they would have in a previous avatar, let's say when Mr. Achyutanandan was chief minister. Are we seeing a recognition now that when it comes to foreign policy, between the states and the center, a growing convergence? Since you work now in the state as well as the center, you would be probably well placed to answer that.
Oh, absolutely. Many people have asked me, because this position was new, whether this leads to some conflict with the central government or this is encroaching in the central government's powers. From the first day, one of the first things I did was to go and meet Ausaf's predecessor, to meet all my former colleagues who are secretaries, to meet the Minister of State who comes from Kerala. So there is, in matters such as these, there is only convergence, there is only cooperation. There might be areas where something goes wrong, something doesn't work. Kerala government may feel that it wants more support from the central government. But ultimately, Kerala is very clear that it wants to work with the central government because it is the interests of the people which are paramount. For the people of Kerala, what is the biggest challenge that Kerala faces? It's a small state with a highly dense population and an extremely educated youth. They do not have jobs. So if we have to have jobs, the state has to develop. And for the state to develop, we need investments from other parts of India. We need investments from abroad. And who better than our Gulf friends, whether they are Indians or whether they are Arab countries, Arab leaders, Arab businessmen, to come and contribute to this exercise.
You know, you learn one new thing every day in life. Today, I've learned from Dr. Saeed that India now has a yoga agreement with Saudi Arabia. And that, in a way, is reflective of this transformative relationship that we have both at the center and within the states with countries in the Gulf and beyond. May that long continue. As Venu Rajamani said, the Arabs came here a long time ago, discovered this part of the world centuries ago. There are new discoverers coming our way. Yes, you wanted to...
Just wanted to have a last word. You were talking about the negative perception of the communist parties, of the left government, etc. It is my personal belief, and I'm sure many people in Kerala, without political bias, will agree, the current chief minister is one of the most pro-business chief ministers Kerala has ever seen. And he is very committed to bringing investments as well as developing the state.
Okay, let me end by then saying that when I interviewed him a couple of years ago, I called him the Mr. In a way, he's Kerala's answer to Mr. Modi. He smiled. But we leave it at that. Clearly, these are chief ministers who want to compete with each other, but also want to expand the footprint of their states across the world. Wonderful to get those insights. Dr. Osaf Saeed, Venu Rajamani, give them a big hand, ladies and gentlemen, on India's bridge to the Gulf. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. I'd like to call upon Mr. Ashok Verghese, Pro-Chancellor, Hindustan Group of Institutions, to hand over a token of appreciation to our guests.
Only the impossible is worth doing. Amrita Hospital. 25 years of doing the impossible. Only the impossible is worth doing. Amrita Hospital. 25 years of doing the impossible. Only the impossible is worth doing. Amrita Hospital. 25 years of doing the impossible. Only the impossible is worth doing. Amrita Hospital. 25 years of doing the impossible.
I'd like to invite the session moderator, Mr. Raj Shengappa, Group Editorial Director, Publishing India Today, and the speaker, Mr. Ram Madhav, Member, Board of Governors, India Foundation.
Important point, I think. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. After that fascinating session on the Gulf, let's go a little beyond. Let's look at the Indian Ocean, and there's no other better expert than Ram Madhav, who's president of the India Foundation, prominent ideologue of the BJP and the RSS, who is his expertise goes beyond any of these subjects. But Ram Madhav, we are sitting virtually at the gateway of India, the Indian Ocean. Kerala is that, Trivandrum is that, and yet it is not India's ocean. How can we make that difference? What do we need to do to leverage our position, our geostrategic interest in this region?
Okay, firstly, just as the South China Sea doesn't become China's sea, I don't claim that Indian Ocean should be India's ocean. That's not probably the right description about this great water body. But I must say that ever since this Indo-Pacific became a very prominent buzzword in the diplomatic circles, strategic circles and all, we forgot that Indian Ocean as an entity existed separately.
You said we forgot. Who forgot?
Including us.
The Modi government or?
No, I give you one example. In the last century,
Right.
it was Europe and America which were in the driver's seat of the world's economy, right? European countries and the US. It used to be Pacific Atlantic. But the European countries knew that by themselves they were a powerful entity. So that's why they created European Union separately. They didn't simply call it, we are a part of the Pacific Atlantic, where always America was the dominant power. So something like that is lacking in our region because after all, what is Indian Ocean? It is the world's third largest water body. And 30% of the world's economy is situated here. 80% of the energy trade happens through this region, 80%. And as far as India is concerned, 80% of all our trade happens through this region.
And 38 countries, am I right?
38 countries and 30% of the world's population, 2.7 billion
Now,
people.
that's a very interesting thought. You are talking about Indian Ocean Union. Is this the new policy or is it something that is your dreams only?
Earlier, some efforts were made to create a community out of this Indian Ocean region. We know about IORA, Indian Ocean Regional Alliance. They did not succeed for the important reason that somehow there is no pivot. After all, for this thing to succeed, you need a pivot. Now, why is Indo-Pacific becoming so prominent? Because there are 3-4 countries as pivot. There is one America, there is one Australia, there is one India, and there is one Japan. You formed a group called Quad. But when it came to Indian Ocean region, although there is a regional, association, in IORA, not Alliance Association, but no country, Hindi mein kehte hain, mai baap nahi hai. It's like that. So probably.
But we have not only a BAP coming, but a very big BAP. We have seen what happened in China. They have created this string of pearls thing where they have ports now in Sri Lanka, Maldives, Djibouti, Laos. And apart from that, they have the Maritime Silk Road, which they built right across in terms of exactly the kind of the border, what's that called? The BRI initiative that China did. And they seem to be now capturing the Indian Ocean. More than India, it is going to become China's ocean if we don't watch out.
Oh, that is the important point that especially India must keep in mind and must acknowledge that neither China nor America is an Indian Ocean power. They're outsiders to the region. That doesn't mean they don't have any stakes. Every ocean, every country has stakes. But today, the competition, if not the conflict between these two powers, should not disrupt the regional balance here. But unfortunately, what you are saying is the day-to-day reality. Their Maritime Silk Road or Maritime Belt and Road initiative has resulted in a major death trap for many countries in our neighborhood.
They call it debt diplomacy and you're calling it the debt trap.
Debt diplomacy.
Or a DEATH trap or is it a DET trap?
It was actually a debt diplomacy. That is how it is described by many strategic analysts in the world. But a time has come when Indian Ocean countries should come together. We host that annual Indian Ocean conference. There, our slogan is, countries from the Indian Ocean should become leaders of the Indian Ocean. Leaders from the Indian Ocean should become leaders of the Indian Ocean. 24 crore, 240 million people in Indonesia. Of course, we don't have good relations, but almost 200 million in Pakistan. 160 million in Bangladesh. We are, of course, the second or first largest country in the world now, 1.4 billion people. We're big countries here, but we are not at all, emphasizing the importance of this region standalone. We're part of Indo-Pacific. The moment you talk about Indo-Pacific, what comes to mind? Taiwan,
right?
South China Sea.
All
The
the
conflict
battles over
between
there.
China and USA, they are important fights. I don't want to dismiss them. They are important challenges for global strategic community. But we have other challenges.
Let's deal with that. One of the things, if we want to project power in the Indian Ocean, is that the Indian Navy must get the prominence it should get. Currently, it is probably, in terms of the budget, the poor cousin of the entire armed forces. Secondly, we should have at least Navy power that is around 200 ships. We have about 100 ships and submarines. I'm talking in general. That had to be beefed up considerably. Are we on the way? Because without that,
we are not a force to reckon with.
Oh, yes, sure. One of the requirements is, of course, to have a strong blue water navy. There's no doubt about it. And we have neglected it after independence for many years because we were seized of challenges, land-based challenges from Pakistan on one side and China on the other side. We did not see much challenge coming from the ocean side, so we probably not paid enough attention. But I must tell you, in the last 8-9 years, especially after Prime Minister Modi started paying attention to this naval, equipping India's naval strength, India's Navy has grown substantially. In fact, the number of vessels have now almost doubled in the last 10 to 15 years. We are growing as a strong blue water navy. Today, we do maritime exercises with 18 countries, even including at a limited level, even including our adversaries. So we are now doing more and more exercises, more and more presence is there. But please remember, when we are talking about Indian Ocean, it's not just from the military or naval perspective. That's why I mentioned, it's a huge trade. It happens here. Ecological questions are there. Maritime challenges are there. Countries face, these are all post-colonial countries. They have their own experience with colonial powers. But where do they turn to? Today, we are talking about Global South. What is Global South? It's the Indian Ocean. It's the ocean in the Indian Ocean and to a little extent in the Pacific Island region. Together, we are 58 countries. If you add Pacific Ocean countries and this Indian Ocean regional countries, we are 58 countries. Biggest group.
But, I mean, it's nice to say all that, but when it actually comes to policy and implementation, okay, you're saying Navy, there's been an effort to beef up. Take a look at our Far East or East, look East policy. We said act East. We have not even built a road starting from our Northeast to Singapore or Thailand or any of those places. We are struggling to get it past Myanmar. What are we doing? We seem to think big, but we act small. What do we need to do?
Okay, definitely there is some problem with our strategic mindset. We were also a colonized country. Ideally, we should be anti-colonial in our mindset. But our mindset continues to be colonized, even after we became independent. So we are still very fascinated with, what we call as westward ho. We are very happy dealing with the Western world.
Right.
So that is why at some point, Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee had to step in and say, now let us turn attention to the East. That is when this whole issue of, it started with P.V. Narasimha Rao, but then it became Act East under Vajpayee. Has enough happened? I would say no. But there is definitely now a realization that our future, our destiny is very invariably linked to the east of our geography, no longer to the west of our geography. Because ASEAN, countries in our neighborhood, are beyond that is Indo-Pacific, there is Australia, there is Japan. These are the countries with which India's future in this century at least, in the 21st century at least, is tied completely. So now there is an effort to increase our activities in this region. Prime Minister Modi, when he went to Singapore for the Shangri-La dialogue, there he declared that we recognize ASEAN's centrality in Indo-Pacific region. So we are recognizing the importance of ASEAN. By the way, ASEAN, those 10 countries, next 5 to 10 years' time, if we don't grow beyond them, they will become the world's third largest economy. Right. They may become 4 if we become 3, but it will be between our 2 of us.
Don't we think, we talked of the Indian Navy, the shortcomings, and you're saying it's trying to be made up. You've talked of now the government's focus trying to build connectivity across land connectivity at least. But really, the Indian Ocean is about sea connectivity. You have to have the ports. You have to have the ships. If to conduct trade, you talked earlier of the fact that this contributes 30% of the world's GDP. What are we doing about that? You have to have, efficient ports that move goods quickly, just as roads are trying to do now. Shipping is not living up to it. What has this government done, or what do you think needs to be done?
Actually, substantial work is happening in that region also. We are also building ports. We are building ports now in Bangladesh, in Myanmar, Maldives. We have anyway already a good base. In Mauritius now we got permission to build a big port in one of the islands. we are also expanding our footprint in this region by way of port building. It's another matter that China has been far ahead of us. They started this activity some 20 years ago. So they built a number of ports around us, which is called string of pearls. We built one Chabahar, but before we started Chabahar work, they started Gwadar. So there is an inherent competition between us. But yes, India is now trying to at least catch up. We are also increasing our presence, our activity. That's why I said we have a number of countries in the region with whom we now have good maritime connectivity. We have established maritime connectivity. Our navies can make port calls at many, many ports. Today, we have that kind of relationship, thanks to the new proactive approach that Prime Minister Modi or this government is taking.
Take trade, for instance, or trade agreements. We have had just an agreement, UAE, free trade agreement happening in Australia. What do we need to do? If you have to look at it, we rejected the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. The RCEP didn't want to join it. There was a lot of people saying we should have, because if we need to have influence on this area, that is a trade agreement. Others differ and say, no, bilateral is better. Where do you stand on this debate?
There was a time when we were, we were not comfortable with some such arrangements in the neighborhood. One of them was RCEP. I was one of those people who said that probably that decision could have been different. We could have probably joined and then wielded our power inside RCEP. But that's okay. There was a situation in which a decision was taken.
Is the door still open, or should we shut it fully? Where do we stand on RCEP?
Now we have moved on, because now there is Quad-led new economic arrangement coming into place in that region.
And that is called Indo-Pacific.
IPEF, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework,
right,
which is coming into place. There probably we are a part of that framework. We will play a greater role there. But having said it, you are right. After a gap, we have, Prime Minister Modi's government came into power in 2014.
Right.
The first free trade agreement happened only last year. It took 7 years to actually do the first free trade agreement. But that free trade agreement happened with UAE.
Right.
It shows that now there is that realization that the neighborhood, earlier session was about these GCC countries, Gulf and all that. We now attach a lot of importance to our relationship with those countries. And today we have best of the relations with GCC countries. Again, they are also a part of Indian Ocean region. Yes, that is the new focus, new attention now of the government.
There seems to be a mismatch between our ambition and our capabilities. If you look at it, the three areas that we talked about, we have this ambition, let's do Far East, but we go slowly on it. We have this ambition of being an Indian Ocean power, but our Navy falls short of it. We want to do trade, but we are hesitant. We always have this, we haven't overcome the hesitations of history. Maybe there weren't hesitations earlier if you looked at, what do we need to do? Is it time now, as you said earlier, an Indian Ocean Union? Is it time to have a multidisciplinary maritime organization that actually coordinates India heads? Where do we need to take the initiative, and what do we need to do in the years ahead?
I would say there is no longer any hesitation. Okay, you are right. We used to be called a very reticent and hesitant nation when it comes to dealing with our neighbors and all that. But that hesitation is no longer there. But whether we have that required, deep pocket is a question. It's all about how you support the countries in the region. Almost majority of the countries in the region are developing countries. Their needs, economic needs, their trade needs, their other needs are quite a substantial burden. If India wants to know, I'll give you one example. Prime Minister, India offered a certain amount of aid to Bangladesh. Naturally, we are neighbors. We always help each other. We extended it. Less than 1 year, China stepped in, offered 3 times more aid. Now, can we do that? Can we compete in that way? That challenge will remain. But one very good thing is, all these countries are very comfortable dealing with India. The reason is, we are not just maritime neighbors or land neighbors. We have a long historical, civilizational, cultural bond that connects Indonesia to Saudi Arabia. There was this talk that Arab sailors, traders came to Kerala coast. They did not come only to Kerala coast, they went further down to Indochina, Bali, all these islands. So we are all connected through history, through civilization, through our religions, through our cultures. That makes India a good soft power.
But without money, we have a problem.
So states like Kerala should help us.
But coming to another issue, okay, we have seen China, an aggressive China, and that is not restrained to our border. We have seen, as you said, it's China has extended its jurisdiction right across to the Indian Ocean, Pakistan, Djibouti, all these countries that we mentioned earlier, Lanka, and even Bangladesh, they've done that. What do we need to do to counter China? One of the things, let's ask that, and then I'll come to the next question.
Yes, China has been a strategic challenge to India for actually many decades now. It has tried to encircle us, that so-called string of pearls, the ports that they built were all around us. They basically tried to cripple Indian Navy from its ability to operate in the high seas by building ports all around us. It continues to be a challenge, and unlike us, they have deep pockets. We do not know whatever, but they are able to attract countries into sort of whether you call it dead diplomacy or debt trap. So that continues to put a lot of pressure on India. As we talk, the Chinese are already building railroads into many of our neighboring countries. They built railroads into Thailand, and they are building railroads into Laos, they are building railroad into Vietnam, they are building railroad into Nepal, in our neighborhood. So they are aggressively, courting or cultivating India's neighborhood or Indian Ocean neighborhood. Therein definitely lies a strategic challenge to India, because in the long term we are rivals in this region. We should become friends ideally, but that's not the situation at the moment.
One of the things is that we thought by having the military and other strategic relations with America, the US would come, and we could be combining our forces. But it seems the US is doing its own thing. It is now becoming, Indian Ocean is becoming, rather than a India, China, US playground, it is becoming US-China playground. And there is this, what they call the Goldilocks phenomenon. We want US to some amount, but we don't want them to take ports and do their own thing. They're going independently of us. How do we handle this situation now?
Okay, in a globalized world, obviously we can't say that this is my region, you don't come in, obviously. And countries like America are big countries, they have their own strategic interests. They do undertake their own activities, they do have their own mission, their own targets and all that. But we always tell our American friends one thing, this we convey to them privately, also sometimes in conferences, whether they like fully or not. We say that, you see, when it comes to India's neighborhood, which country is more trusted? If I may ask a frank question, is it India or US? You put it to a test in the neighborhood. I mean, you ask Vietnam, you ask other countries, you ask any country in the region, they will immediately say India. Because there is a history. Because of that history, India commands more respect. So, ideally, because India and USA share many things, ideologically, perception-wise, we are all committed to building strong democratic and free world. India should get the front-line role when it comes to dealing with neighborhood at least. So the US should actually think that India, here is India, which is ready to sail with me. Why not allow India's views to prevail? Sometimes that doesn't happen, unfortunately.
Now, leading US strategist who's of Indian origin, Ashley Tellis, said, America is having a bad bet with India. Yeah?
India is a bad bet.
India is a bad bet for America. What is your views on that?
Okay, maybe the heading and the content inside were slightly different. It was, somehow that heading immediately invokes a negative response from all of us. In the content, what he tried to say was that, probably there is a mismatch, disalignment between what America is intending to do in the region and how far India would like to go. Not can go. India would like to go. Maybe India would not like to go, whole hog with America in achieving America's strategic objectives.
No, what is your point? Do you think we should now, knowing what has happened between China and Russia, should we now tilt strongly towards the US, get into what they call the NATO plus that is there? Is that time ripe for India to do that?
No, that is an absurd proposition. First of all, this whole idea that now Indo-Pacific should become NATO plus, or it should become Indo-Pacific NATO. Quad should become Indo-Pacific NATO. I'm sure India is in total disagreement with any such proposition. Quad, as far as India is concerned, is an economic alliance, a trade alliance, a people-to-people alliance, but not definitely a military alliance. So if there is that expectation, which Ashley sounded in his article, as if India should become a military partner. You use the word NATO plus. Some people started writing that India should become a part of NATO plus, etc. But as far as India is concerned, definitely look at India's 75 years of independence history. Have we become a part of any military alliance? Forget now. Any government did it in the past? Then why is that expectation coming that suddenly we will become a part of a military alliance? No, India is, its temperament is not for it. India will be a part of any UN assigned peace alliance. We will go to any country to establish peace, but UN mandated, not US mandated. So that is India's temperament. So if Ashley expects that is a bad bet, so it be. India should be understood. India is an important power in this region. India is a frontline power when it comes to Indian Ocean region. That has to be acknowledged by countries like USA.
We have about 2.5 minutes. I know your expertise is in various regions, whether it's Kashmir, Northeast. And since Kaushik is here somewhere, he might be interested in asking this particular question, but I don't see him here. I'll ask it on his behalf. Take a look at what is happening in Manipur. The clash between the Métis and Cookies. You have had, I think, 90% of the deaths. How many deaths? 81% people have died. The maximum number of them are Cookies. What is, I mean, you've had Mr. Amit Shah go there, spend 3 days, and yet that situation doesn't seem to resolve itself. What needs to be done in your opinion? You're the expert. You built the BJP's Northeast policy.
Oh, firstly, everybody must understand that problem in Manipur is not a religion problem, as some try to project it as though it is a clash between Hindus and Christians. No. It is not a tribal versus non-tribal problem. It's all about land. A state with meager plains territory. Valley is a very small part of the state. 10% of Manipur is valley. 90% of it is hills. And this 10% of the valley is home to 60% of the people. That is where the whole clash happens. Out of the 60% living in the valley, 90% are Métis, who happen to be mostly Vaishnavite Hindus. But that is, by the way, that is one of their identities. The problem is people from the hills trying to come down and take possession of the land because valley is open, whereas hills are controlled by separate hill acts, hill laws. There, nobody from valley can go and buy land, whereas valley people can come down. So this has been a reason, a source of tension between people in the hills and in the valley. I must tell you something else. In the hills, Cookies are one big community, tribal community, and another big community is Nagas. And Cookies and Nagas again had this problem. Which hill belonged to whom? And I tell you, 2003, there was a massive violence in which almost 200 people died. 200. This time, deaths were about 80, 85. Every single death is bad. Nobody should die for such reasons. But just to understand, the challenge is how do you manage this, this economic imperative of finding good place to live and all that. So we always had these tensions. I handled that state when we formed our government in 2017. There was an active standoff, active blockade going on from hills to valley. Everything to valley has to come through the hills. The people in the hill people have blocked the road because they wanted to take some revenge on the people in the valley.
So what do you think needs to be done
So
now?
we managed to do a great effort in finding a solution through dialogue, through talks, to pacify them, to give them what they needed.
Now, what do you think we should do?
Remember, this is not nothing anti-India in this. Even the hills people are strongly Indian.
No, what do we need to do
So
right now?
what we need to do is, when such situations arise, we need to be more proactive in tackling them before they become such a big challenge today. The goodwill that has been built after a great effort has gone today. Again, the two communities, Métis and Cookies, have become great enemies today. I don't know how long it will take place. Yes, some efforts have been made, but better efforts could have happened.
So that is right under the BJP watch, the government, right?
Yes,
BJP
I mean,
government watch. That you said so. But I mean, what do we need to do now? What would you say now?
See, Home Minister was there. He held closed-door discussions with groups in the valley, groups in the hills. So today there appears to be the appreciation on both sides that we should not quarrel anymore. Probably we should slowly find a solution. Today the valley, the hills people demand that they need a separate hill council with all the powers. There is hill council. There are 6 hill districts in Manipur. They have their own hill councils and they get elected. Unfortunately, elections have not taken place. That's another reason. You always should have an elected government in place to actually diffuse tensions.
Right.
When you don't form it, and when state runs the districts also, there is bound to be.
Saying hold the elections quickly.
We should hold district elections, district hill council elections, give power to the local people. Some such measures are also needed, but I think the Home Minister has spent a lot of time there, and things are now returning to normalcy.
Mother, we've run out of time. We could speak from the ocean right up to the hills of Northeast, and I'm sure we missed Kashmir. But thank you very much, Rama. Let's give a very warm round of applause for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I'd like to call upon Mr. Ashraf Sharif from Sham Steel to hand over a token of appreciation from us. Thank you so much, sir. We'll now break for lunch for 30 minutes and we'll once again assemble at 2:45 p.m. The lunch will be served in the Pandal area right behind you. And the time to thank our sponsors. Presenting sponsor, Kerala Tourism, powered by Kalyan Jewelers, health partner, Amrita University Knowledge partner, Hindustan Institute of Technology and Science, luxury design partner, Ferresta Steel partner, Sham Steel, celebration partner, Radico International School partner, SSVM Institutions, Coimbatore, partner, NECC Associate sponsor, Kerala Infrastructure Investment, Fund Board Hospitality partner, the Leela Ravi's Kovalam and the media partner, Mathrubhumi. I'll see you all once again at 2:45 for the next half of the day 2 of 5th edition of India Today Conclave South. Thank you all.
From a land